Hey guys, how are you all? I hope you all are doing well. Today we're going to see an amazing what-if story. But before we start, it's just a humble request that if you're new here, please subscribe because it actually motivates me a lot to post more. Also, the stories on my channel are fully written by me. So if you have any suggestions for what-if stories, please let me know below the comment section. Now, without any further delay, let's start. What if Rimuru was a girl-led JURA tempest? The first thing I heard was Shuna's voice right by my ear. Empress, if you keep fidgeting, this will take all morning. I blinked my eyes open. Warm light filtered through the curtains of the royal bedroom, soft and golden on the polished floor. Shuna stood behind me with a brush in hand, pink hair tied up, face already set in serious big sister mode. Hey, I am fidgeting because you're stabbing my scalp, I said. There's a difference. She paused, then tugged a little harder on a stubborn knot. That one was on purpose, she said. I winced. Being a slime used to mean I could just blob around with zero hair care. Gendered human body came with a lot of extra maintenance. Dresses, ribbons, layers of fabric that looked pretty and tried to strangle me at the same time. Today was a full festival day, so Shuna had gone all out. Remind me why I agreed to this again, I muttered, looking at my reflection in the tall mirror. A girl stared back at me. Blue hair that fell to the middle of her back. Golden eyes, light blue dress lined with silver thread, fitted at the waist, skirt wide enough that I could probably hide Gobda under it. Not that I should try that. Probably. Shuna finished the braid and tucked the last pin into place with neat precision, because she said, coming around to face me, you are the Empress of Tempest. People look up to you. You cannot greet the Founders Festival in a tracksuit. I could, I said. I have the power. I am literally a demon lord. She folded her hands and gave me a look. That look? The one that said, you could be a demon lord, but I am still your younger sister and I will win this. I sighed. Fine. No tracksuit, I said. You win this round, Shuna. She brightened and stepped back to inspect her work. You look perfect, she said. Everyone will be even more in love with you. That sounds dangerous, I said. Before she could answer, the door to the bedroom flew open. Cheyenne stormed in like a purple-haired hurricane, armor polished, giant sword resting against her shoulder. The guards outside the room tried to say something about knocking, but she had already crossed the floor in long strides. Rimuru, Cheyenne said, eyes shining. You look astonishing. If anyone tries anything during the festival, I will cut them in half. Good morning to you too, I said, and please do not say things like that where Diablo can hear you. He will take it as a challenge. Cheyenne grinned. If he gets there first, that just means I was too slow. Shuna pressed a hand to her forehead. This is not how normal people talk before breakfast, she said. I laughed. The sound bounced off the high ceiling. The room smelled faintly of flowers from Shuna's incense and of clean linen. For a moment, it really did feel like a peaceful morning with family, not the headquarters of a monster nation that every human kingdom was watching with narrowed eyes. Anyway, Cheyenne said, leaning closer to squint at my dress. Are you sure you can move in that thing if something happens? I shifted my weight experimentally, letting a little slime flexibility adjust the way the fabric sat on my body. I can move, I said. Also, if someone attacks in the middle of our own capital, I think we have bigger problems than my skirt. Cheyenne opened her mouth to argue. Then another voice cut in from the doorway. She looks fine, Benimaru said. You two are the problem. I turned my head. Benimaru stood just inside the room, one hand on the doorframe, red hair tied back, formal coat hanging open over his usual armor. He had that calm commander expression on his face that made people forget he was only fire away from turning the whole region into glass. Good morning, Benimaru, I said. His gaze lingered on me for a second longer than usual. He crept up my neck. Shuna noticed it. Shuna always noticed everything. See, she said quietly in my ear, smug. Told you. Benimaru cleared his throat. The council square is already crowded, he said. Rigard asked me to remind you about the opening speech. He was mumbling about length and pacing and proper pauses for cheering. I groaned. I told him I do not need a full script, I said. I could just talk. You say that, Benimaru replied, stepping into the room. But last time you almost started explaining your taxation policy in front of a group of farmers who only came to see fireworks. Taxation policy is important, I said. Not on festival morning, he said. Cheyenne snorted. I like that speech, she said. The part where you promised to punch anyone who cheated the goblins on trade deals was inspiring. Thank you, Cheyenne, I said. At least someone appreciates my sense of justice. Shuna clapped her hands once. All right, she said. Empress ready. Bodyguards ready. Time to go make the people happy. I stood, the skirt rustling around my legs. The weight of the dress tugged at me, a gentle reminder that my slime body was wrapped in layers of expectation. Empress, Demon Lord, Ruler, Friend. I straightened my back. Right, I said. Let us go see our country. The main balcony of the Tempest Castle opened over the central square, where the Founders' Festival was already in full swing. Music drifted up from below, bright and messy. Vendors shouted about grilled meat and sweet skewers. Children ran between stalls with wooden swords and slime plush toys. Kijin in formal clothes bowed to passing dignitaries. Goblins laughed and carried crates twice their size. Ranga lay curled in the shade near the balcony doors, massive black fur rising and falling with every satisfied breath. When I stepped out, his ears perked up. Master, he said through our link. You look very shiny today. Is that a compliment? I asked. Yes, he said with absolute sincerity. I smiled and scratched behind his ear. His tail thumped the floor. Benimaru took his place on my right. Shine on my left. Shuna hovered just behind, adjusting the fall of my cape. Sui watched from the shadows near the balcony pillar, more presence than shape, his eyes following every movement in the crowd. Diablo was not visible, which meant he was somewhere, watching everything. Rigard stood at the edge of the balcony with a stack of papers in hand, sweat beading on his forehead. My lady, he said, half bow, half wobble. The people are ready. The schedule is tight, so we need to begin soon. After your speech, the first trade delegation arrives, then the martial demonstrations, then the tour of the new district, and then the council chamber briefing, and then... He caught my look and froze. Right, he said. Short speech. Very short speech. It is fine, I said. We will manage. Sui shifted just enough for me to see the small movement. Nothing unusual in the crowd. He said quietly. The barrier is stable. Ramiris is already in position at the labyrinth entrance. Veldora is in the Colosseum eating roasted meat. Of course he is, I muttered. At least he is not wrestling random guests this time. Sui hesitated. He tried, he said. Cheyenne threatened to knock him out if he broke anything important. Cheyenne lifted her chin. I can and will, she said. I shook my head, fighting a smile. All right, I said. Let's begin. Rigard scurried to the balcony edge and raised his arms. A hush fell over the square as people noticed. It had taken time for the human and monster residents to learn the signals, but now they were tuned to our rhythm. I stepped forward. 1,000 pairs of eyes turned toward me. Goblins, Kijin, lizardmen, dwarves, beastmen, humans who had taken a chance on a monster nation with strange laws and stranger promises. They looked up at me not as a slime or a threat, but as their ruler. My chest tightened. Good morning, Tempest, I called out, letting a little magic strengthen my voice so it carried clearly. A wave of cheers rose, then settled. I promised I would keep this short, I said. Shuna is already giving me a look, and I know you all want to get to the food. So here it is. Another year. We're still here. We are still alive. We are still building a country that can protect everyone who calls it home. I paused, letting myself take in the crowd. Faces, scars, smiles. When we started, we were a small village in a dangerous forest, I said. Now we have roads, schools, trade routes, allied nations, an actual theater district. Somehow Rigard convinced me to approve that. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Rigard tried to disappear behind his papers. We have come this far because you worked for it, I said. Because you trusted me, this weird slime girl who kept saying it would all work out. A murmur of fond agreement. Someone shouted my name. Someone else yelled that the food stalls were running out of grilled lizard tail. And we are not done, I said. There are people out there who still think monsters cannot build something better than fear and conquest. That we're just beasts pretending to be civilized. I plan to prove them wrong. Not just with power, but with the way we live. With how we treat each other. How we treat our guests. I let that settle, voice calm but firm. So eat. Celebrate. Spend too much at the stalls. Try not to let Veldora win every game in the Colosseum. Then rest, because tomorrow we go back to work. We still have a world to fix. The square exploded into cheers. Benimaru glanced at me out of the corner of his eye. Much better than the taxation speech, he said under his breath. I can add it in next time, I replied. Slide it right between the jokes. Please do not, he said. The crowd energy washed over the balcony. Joy, pride, excitement. For a few heartbeats, I let myself believe this peace would last. Then Sui stepped closer. His voice dropped lower, so only the people on the balcony could hear. There is a messenger from the Council of the West waiting in the throne room, he said. Urgent seal. They refused to give the letter to anyone else. My fingers curled around the balcony rail. Urgent seal. Council. This early, on festival day. That felt like a problem. All right, I said quietly. Benimaru, Cheyenne with me. Shana, keep an eye on the festival arrangements. Sui, stay close. Rigard, you are in charge of keeping things running until I return. Do not let Veldora organize an arm wrestling contest with the visiting nobles again. Rigard straightened. Yes, my lady, he said, eyes shining with terrified determination. I turned from the cheering crowd and walked back into the castle. The sound followed me like a warm tide, then faded as the heavy doors closed behind us. The throne room was cooler than the balcony. Light filtered through colored glass panels that painted the floor in soft patterns. Guards lined the walls in neat rows. Rigard had polished everything until it gleamed, because that was the sort of thing Rigard did. A human man knelt at the base of the short flight of steps leading up to the throne. He wore a plain travel coat, dust from the road still clinging to the hem. He was older than me, with streaks of gray at his temples and calloused hands. The sigil pinned to his chest marked him as an official courier of the council. He kept his eyes lowered as I took my seat. Benimaru stood slightly behind my right shoulder, Cheyenne behind my left, hand resting near her sword hilt. Sui took his usual place in the shadows. Rise, I said. The courier stood and bowed again. His gaze flickered up, then down, just long enough for me to see the nervous sweat at his hairline. Why, Your Majesty Rimuru Tempest, he said. I bring a message from the Council of the West, delivered under highest urgency. I was instructed to place it only in your hands. His voice shook around the title. That was normal. Most humans were not used to calling a monster empress. I extended my hand. He stepped forward and placed a thick envelope in my palm. The wax seal bore the symbol of the council, pressed neat and sharp. No visible magical trap, but I felt the faint tingle of a detection spell. Seal, I thought. Anything nasty on this? No lethal toxins detected. Trace amount of standard detection magic. Probability of concealed curse low. Probability of political hassle high. Her dry tone in my head was as reassuring as ever. Thought so, I replied internally. I broke the seal and unfolded the letter. The text was polite, full of the usual council phrases. Recognition of Tempest as an important partner. Praise for our economic contributions. Concern about recent monster-related incidents around the continent. Request for my personal attendance at a diplomatic gala in Ingracia to discuss future cooperation. At the bottom, the signatures of the council representatives. And one more flourish in red ink. Maria Bel Rosso. I felt my shoulders tighten. I knew the Rosso name. Old human nobility, deep in trade and politics, fingers in a lot of money jars. Wealthy, proud. Not fond of monsters cutting into their business. To host a gala and personally invite me as guest of honor. That was either a serious attempt at diplomacy or the prettiest bait I had seen in a long time. Well, I said aloud, folding the letter again. The council has invited me to a ball. Cheyenne blinked. A ball, she repeated. With dancing. Probably, I said. Her eyes gleamed. I will need a new dress, she said. Benimaru let out a very quiet sigh. What is their stated agenda? He asked. Officially, I said, to improve cooperation, discuss shared security concerns, and formally acknowledge Tempest as a stable pillar in the region. And unofficially, Sui murmured. That is what we need to find out, I said. I looked at the courier. How long did it take you to reach us? I asked. 7 days, Your Majesty, he said. We rode without rest. The council wishes to hold the gala in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Enough time to plan. Enough time for someone to move pieces around on the board. I tapped the letter against my knee. Thank you for your effort, I said. You will be given food and rest in our guest quarters. Afterwards, you may stay for the rest of the festival if you wish. His eyes widened. I am honored, he said. Thank you. He bowed so low his nose almost touched the floor, then backed away carefully under the watchful eyes of the guards. Once the doors closed behind him, Cheyenne leaned in, shoulders tensing. This feels like a trap, she said. Probably, I agreed. So we are not going, she said. We're going, I said. 3 sets of eyes snapped to me at once. Benimaru frowned. Rimuru, he said. You do not have to put yourself in danger just to make humans feel comfortable. I'm not doing it to make them comfortable, I said. If the council wants to test us, I would rather be in the room when it happens. If they plan something, I want to see it with my own eyes. Besides, if we refuse, they will spin that as proof that the monster empress is dangerous and unstable. Cheyenne crossed her arms. So we walk into their nest and hope they play fair, she said. I smiled without much humor. We walk into their nest, I said, and let them forget that the monsters in this world can read a room better than they do. Benimaru clearly did not like it, but he knew I had already decided. Then we prepare, he said. Advanced scouts. Full security detail. Sui will need additional men in the shadows. Diablo will want to come as well. I rubbed my temple. Diablo will insist on coming, I said. And if I say no, he will probably teleport into the gala anyway and stand behind a pillar glaring at everyone. Cheyenne snorted. I would pay to see that, she said. Please do not encourage him, Benimaru said. I stood from the throne, folding the letter neatly. All right, I said. We accept the invitation. Benimaru, help Rigard adjust our schedule. Cheyenne, talk to Shuna about clothing and logistics. Sui, I want a full report on border activity and any strange movement near our trade routes. Sui bowed his head. Understood, he said. By the time midday rolled around, the festival was in full chaos again. The smell of grilled food clung to the air even inside the castle halls. I could hear faint echoes of music and laughter through the windows as I walked toward the strategy room. Sui waited inside with a map spread across the main table. The room was quieter than the throne room, lined with shelves of scrolls and ledgers. Benimaru stood at the far end, arms crossed, gaze fixed on the map as if he could burn holes in it. I closed the door behind me. All right, I said. Show me. Sui pointed to several marked spots along the map. 2 weeks ago, a caravan carrying magisteel to Dworgen disappeared near this crossroads, he said. The escort reported nothing unusual until their link went silent. We found the wagons abandoned 3 days later. No bodies. No tracks. I frowned. No monsters, I asked. None, Sui said. The goods were gone, but the teams were not harmed, as far as we can tell. There was a faint trace of masked presence. Highly trained. Possibly human. He moved his finger to another spot. Shortly after that, scouts reported a group of armed humans moving through the forest northeast of our border. They avoided patrols with professional skill. Our agents identified sigils on their gear that matched those used by the Cerberus mercenary group. Cerberus. I had seen references to them in reports. High-end mercenaries. Quiet. Very good at killing people without leaving witnesses. Not the type who came near Tempest for sightseeing. Any direct contact, I asked. Not yet, Sui said. They're disciplined. When our scouts try to close in, they vanished. This pattern has repeated 3 times. Benimaru grunted. So he said, Council sends us a shiny invitation at the same time as their favorite pet killers lurk near our borders and our trade goods vanish. Totally not suspicious at all. Maybe they are unrelated, I said, then shook my head. No, even saying that feels stupid. Seal spoke up in my mind. Correlation between timing of incidents and council activity is significant. Probability that these events are connected to Rosso influence is high. That is what I thought, I replied silently. Aloud, I said, do we have any names tied to these movements? Sui nodded slightly. There are whispers, he said. Merchants speak of a noble line funding new operations near the Western Church. The name Rosso appears often. I have not yet confirmed it directly, but the pattern matches the expansion of their trade network. Benimaru drummed his fingers on the edge of the table. Rosso, he said slowly. They are rich, powerful, deep in the council. They hate competition. and now we are the biggest competition. I let out a slow breath. The room felt a little smaller. So they lure me to Ingracia with a ball, I said. Meanwhile, their mercenaries sniff around our borders and test our defenses. Classic. Benimaru looked at me sharply. Rimuru, he said. We can still back out. Send a polite refusal. Strengthen our walls. Make them come to us. That would give them a reason to call us cowards, I said. And it would not stop them from attacking anyway. At least if I am there. I can see how far they are willing to go. He clenched his jaw, then looked away, frustrated. I stepped closer and put a hand on his arm. I will not be going alone, I said quietly. You will be there. Shine will be there. Sui in shadows. Diablo somewhere being dramatic. And if they think I am just a pretty monster princess, they are in for a surprise. His muscles relaxed a little under my fingers. It does not matter what they think, he said. They do not get to treat you like bait. My heart did a small, ridiculous jump at the protective anger in his voice. I pulled my hand back before Shuna could appear out of nowhere and start teasing. We will not let them, I said. A knock sounded at the door. Enter, I called. The door opened, and Diablo glided inside. There was no other word for it. He did not walk. He glided. Black suit immaculate. Smile pleasant. Eyes far too sharp. Rimuru, he said, bowing with one arm across his chest. I apologize for interrupting your strategy meeting, but something has come to my attention that you need to see. Benimaru stiffened. Please tell me this is not about you picking a fight with the Colosseum staff again, he said. Diablo looked offended. I am a responsible citizen of Tempest, he said. I would never cause trouble on festival day. He let that sink in, then added, at least not without reason. I pinched the bridge of my nose. All right, I said. What did you find? He stepped forward and placed a small folded sheet of parchment on the map table between us. This was intercepted by one of my subordinates near the western gate, he said. A runner attempted to pass it to a traveler who matched Cerberus' descriptions. When questioned, he claimed it was a simple trade note. I persuaded him to admit otherwise. His smile did not change. That made it worse. I unfolded the parchment. Inside, neat rows of symbols marched across the page. At first glance, it looked like nonsense. Letters and numbers arranged without meaning. Then my brain caught the pattern. It was a cipher, not just any cipher. It felt familiar in the way handwriting feels familiar, even when the words are different. I felt my stomach drop. Sui, I said slowly, does this look familiar to you? He moved closer, eyes scanning the page. His pupils narrowed. Yes, he said. This pattern matches the code used by our internal border reports. It was designed to be used only by high-ranking Tempest officials. Benimaru's hand tightened on the table edge until the wood creaked. So someone in our own system is feeding information to Cerberus, he said. Using our codes. Diablo tilted his head. That is the conclusion I came to as well, he said lightly. Which means, my dear Rimuru, that the humans are not the only ones planning something for this charming gala. The symbols on the parchment blurred for a second as heat flared in my chest. My people laughed in the festival square outside. Music played. Children shouted. The scent of food drifted in through the window. Inside the strategy room, the air turned cold. Seal's voice echoed in my mind. New variable detected. Probability of internal breach raised. Recommend immediate containment measures. I stared at the coded message. At the familiar structure. Someone close. Someone trusted. Someone who had access to our instruments and enough nerve to use them against us. All right, I said softly. My voice did not rise. It did not need to. Lock the borders quietly, I said. No panic. No public announcements. I want a list of everyone who has used this code in the last month. We find our leak before the council's ball. Benimmer nodded, eyes hard. Sui bowed in silent agreement. Diablo's smile sharpened. Outside, laughter rose with the festival music. Inside, I folded the parchment and set it down on the map, as if I were placing a piece on a board game. This was the moment. The line between our bright, noisy, happy piece and whatever came next. I could almost hear my own future narration in my head. This was the day I realized the cage around Tempest did not come from outside. Someone had built bars inside our walls. The carriage rattled hard enough that I had to grab the seat to keep from sliding into Benimaru. Remind me why human nobles hate smooth roads, I said, teeth clicking as we hit another hole. We could have fixed this entire route in a week. Because they make money from repairing the same broken stones every season, Benimaru said. He sat across from me, arms folded, red hair tied back, posture straight even with the shaking. Cheyenne was beside him, one hand braced on the wall, the other resting near the sword at her hip. It is a clever strategy, Cheyenne added. Create more work for your own people. That is not a clever strategy, I said. That is a scam. Cheyenne shrugged. Humans seem to like those, she said. I glanced at the small window. Outside, the walls of Ingracia rose higher with every turn, white stone catching the afternoon light. The closer we came, the more human guards we saw. Banners snapped in the wind. Knights in polished armor watched our convoy pass with tight jaws and narrowed eyes. Our convoy itself was impossible to ignore. First carriage, me, Benimaru, Cheyenne. Second carriage, Shuna, Rigard, a few senior officials, riding outside. Sui in the shadows, Diablo in full polite mode, a squad of Kijin and Lizardman guards. Ranga ran along the side of the road, visible for once because a giant direwolf pretending to be a normal pet would have been worse. The air smelled of dust and city smoke. Voices drifted from beyond the walls. In Gracia, central magic density is lower than Tempest, but the concentration of barriers around the noble quarter is unusually high. Seal's voice sat in the back of my mind, calm as ever, meaning I asked silently, meaning that if someone wanted to trap you inside a particular building, they would have a very easy time anchoring their spell work to the existing wards. Great, I thought. Thank you for the comforting image. Benimaru watched my face. He had learned to read the tiny pauses when I talked to Seal. Something wrong, he asked. Just admiring their barrier work, I said. Very strong, very polite, very much like a cage with good paint. Cheyenne snorted. Let them try to close it on us, she said. We will walk out through the walls. Ranga's voice brushed my mind, excited. Master, he said, there is a smell ahead. Perfume, metal, fear under the perfume. How far, I asked. At the gate, he answered. Many guards. Fancy ones, of course. All right, I said aloud. Everyone remember the plan. We are here as friendly guests with terrifying power, not terrifying power that happens to be friendly. Cheyenne grinned. So, no cutting anyone in half right away, she said. Correct, I said. Not unless they really deserve it. Benimaru's mouth twitched. If they try anything, they will deserve it, he said quietly. The carriage rolled to a stop. A trumpet sounded outside. The driver called back that we had reached the main gate. I smoothed the front of the dark blue gown Shuna had forced me into that morning. Lighter and easier to move and in the founder's festival monster of a dress, but still a lot of fabric. My cape was clipped at my shoulders, lined with white fur that felt soft against my neck. A silver circlet rested in my hair. Empress mode. I drew in a slow breath. Showtime, I muttered. The carriage door swung open. Light hit my eyes, then the view cleared. The main gate of Ingracia was impressive in a very human way. High walls, heavy doors banded with metal, statues of heroes I did not recognize flanking the entrance. A line of city guards in ceremonial armor stood at attention. Behind them, a small group of officials waited. At their center, a thin man with a neatly trimmed beard stepped forward. His clothes screamed old money. Rings flashed on his fingers. Rimuru Tempest, he said with a deep bow, voice smooth but stiff. On behalf of the Council of the West and the city of Ingracia, I welcome you and your retinue. I stepped down from the carriage with Ranga padding at my side, Benimaru and Cheyenne right behind me. Magic cushions softened my landing so the dress did not tangle. Thank you for hosting us, I said. Your roads are very memorable. He blinked. Our roads, he repeated. They have character, I said. Cheyenne shifted slightly as if hiding a smile. Benimaru did not even try. The official recovered. I am Counselor Huber, he said. I have been assigned as your primary liaison for the duration of your stay. The council is honored that you answered our invitation. Beside him, a few nobles glanced at each other. Some looked nervous. A few looked at me as if I were a zoo exhibit. Of course, I said. We value cooperation. That was true. It was just not the only reason I was here. Huber gestured toward a line of carriages waiting beyond the gate. We will escort you to the Palace of Glass, he said. Your delegation will be lodged in the eastern wing. The gala will begin at sunset. Palace of Glass, I thought. That seems subtle. Name refers to the use of enchanted crystal in the windows and flooring, not an admission of structural fragility. Still sounds fragile, I answered. We moved through the gate. Ranga shrank down to a more dog-like form beside me. The guards flinched when they saw him, then forced their shoulders straight. In Gracia's inner city was all lines in order. Straight streets, clean facades, shops with neat signs. People watched from doorways and windows as our convoy passed. Some bowed their heads. Some stared. A group of children pointed at Ranga until one of the adults dragged them back inside. Their fear smells old, Ranga said softly, like it has been there a long time. I know, I replied. Benimru walked close enough that his elbow almost brushed mine. On my other side, Cheyenne's hand remained near her sword. Sui's presence skimmed along the edges of my awareness. Shadows on rooftops, quiet feet in alleyways. He was already mapping escape routes in case things went very wrong. We turned a corner, and the Palace of Glass came into view. It rose from the center of a broad plaza, tall and pale, windows catching the light until the upper floors looked almost transparent. Crystal panels decorated the front steps. The air was full of the sound of water from nearby fountains and the steady murmur of city life. Huber spread his arms as if he had personally carved it from the ground. Here you will stay as honored guests of the council, he said. It is very shiny, I said. His smile tightened. We climbed the steps. Human servants in clean uniforms bowed as we passed. On the way in, I let a little of my aura seep out in a friendly way, just enough to remind everyone that the small blue-haired girl in the fancy dress was not nearly as harmless as she looked. Several nobles swayed on their feet. One of the younger guards sat down on the steps very suddenly. Careful, I said cheerfully. Altitude change. Cheyenne coughed to hide a laugh. Inside, the palace was even more polished. Floors of pale stone, walls hung with paintings, enchanted crystal chandeliers that glowed with clean light. The air smelled of polished wood, candle wax, and expensive perfume. Servants led our people to their rooms. Huber walked us through a side corridor toward the eastern wing. Your private suite is at the end, he said to me. Your guards will be housed in the rooms immediately adjacent. Good, Benimuru said. Huber glanced at him and quickly looked away. We will send someone to assist with preparations for the gala, Huber continued. If you need anything, please inform the staff. Thank you, I said. He bowed again and retreated, leaving us in the quiet hallway. Shuna waited at the open door of my suite. She had already been up here ahead of us. Judging from the way a poor palace maid hovered nearby with a stack of folded sheets and a fearful expression. Rimuru, Shuna said with a bright smile. The bath is ready. The dress is waiting. You have exactly 2 hours before guests begin to arrive in the main hall. 2 hours, I said. That sounds like a lot of time. It is not, she said firmly. Benimuru stepped past her into the room, scanning it with a quick, sharp look. He checked windows, balcony doors, the open arch that led to the inner sitting room. Sui slipped past like a shadow and vanished into one of the side chambers. Room seems clear, Benimuru said. Standard wards. Nothing that Seal has not already seen. Correct. I felt Seal move through the walls like a quiet current, cataloging every spell pattern. Shuna clapped once. You can do your tactical scan after we stop your hair from getting crushed by travel dust, she said. Bath. Now. I groaned. Do I get any say in my own life? I asked. No. Shuna and Cheyenne answered at the same time. Benimuru held up both hands. I will go confirm our guard placements with Diablo, he said. Try not to start an incident before the opening toast. No promises, I replied. He gave me a look, that half-fond, half-worried look he had picked up ever since I declared I was going to the ball in person. Then he left, his cloak brushing the door frame as he stepped out into the hall. The suite door closed behind him. Shuna herded me toward the bathing room. Cheyenne, help me with the clasps, she ordered. We need the Empress of Jura to look like she did not ride in a carriage over every rock in the region. Understood, Cheyenne said. Warm steam rolled out as Shuna opened the inner door. The smell of scented oils filled the air. For a few minutes, I let myself sink into the hot water, dress and boots abandoned on a nearby bench. Silence, except for the splash of water and Shuna humming to herself while she sorted through hairpins. My body relaxed, but my mind did not. Status on the cipher search. I thought towards seal. 32 possible users of the compromised code have been identified. 11 have strong alibis for the times of the suspected messages. 10 are still under review. 11 present open risk. Any pattern, I asked. 3 are involved in external trade. 2 oversee border patrol rotations. 1 is attached to the delegation currently in Ingracia. I sat up fast enough to splash water over the edge of the tub. Attached to this delegation, I asked. Who? Seal did not hesitate. Jalmile. I stared at the tiled wall. That is a cruel joke, I said. It is not a conclusion. It is a risk flag. Jalmile, our friendly merchant partner who laughed too loud and always had a new plan to make both of us rich. The idea of him as a traitor made my head hurt. Could it be forged, I asked. Yes. The code could have been copied. There are several other suspects with access to his notes. I let out a slow breath. Then we watch, I thought. No accusations yet. Agreed. Local threat priority remains the Rosso family, their associates in the council, and any Cerberus agents in the building. I leaned back in the water. Great, I muttered. Poison, mercenaries, and maybe a traitor. Perfect ball night. By the time the sun began to sink behind the city, the palace of glass had transformed. Light spilled from every window. Music drifted up from the main hall, strings and flutes weaving together in something complicated and expensive sounding. Servants moved like a tide through the corridors, carrying trays, adjusting flowers, checking place settings. Shuna stood behind me again, hands steady as she finished the last twist in my hair. This time my gown was black edged with silver, cut close at the waist with a skirt that moved easily. The Empress look was more armored than soft, collar high, sleeves fitted. A single blue gem sat at my throat. I feel like I could duel someone in this, I said. That is the idea, Shuna replied. If they expect you to be a delicate doll, they will be confused. Good, I said. I like confusing enemies. Cheyenne leaned against the wall by the door in formal uniform, sword at her hip, hair tied back in a high tail. You look like you could duel someone in absolutely anything, she said. Dress or no dress. I will try not to test that tonight, I said. There was a knock at the door. Enter, I called. Benimaru stepped inside, already in his own formal clothes. Dark coat trimmed in red, white shirt, hair tied back. His sword hung at his side, plain and deadly. He stopped for a moment when he saw me. His eyes widened just a little. You look very, he began, then seemed to lose the rest of the sentence. Shuna smiled like a cat. Words, she prompted. He cleared his throat. Regal, he said finally. You look regal. Heat climbed up my neck. That is the point, I said, try not to sound flustered. You look good too. Very commander. Very fire hazard. His mouth twitched. That is not a compliment normal people use, he said. We are not normal people, I replied. Cheyenne rolled her eyes. People, romance later, she said. Humans now. She was right. I drew in a breath and checked my aura, smoothing it into something calm and steady. Just enough pressure to keep the room respectful, not enough to make anyone faint. Everyone ready? I asked. Always, Cheyenne said. Benimaru nodded once. We stepped out into the corridor as a palace attendant arrived to escort us. The walk to the main hall felt longer than it probably was. Guards lined the way, eyes sharp and respectful. The music grew louder as we approached. At the doors of the gala hall, 2 heralds waited. They wore red and gold, their hands resting on long staffs. One of them raised a small scroll and glanced down. Announcing Rimuru Tempest, Empress of the JURA Federation, he called as the doors swung open. Demon Lord and ruler of the nation of Tempest. Hundreds of eyes turned at once. For a moment, the heavy hall went quiet except for the music. I stepped through the doorway. The ballroom was exactly what you would expect from wealthy humans who wanted to show off. High ceiling painted with scenes of legends. Crystal chandeliers. Walls lined with mirrors and tall windows. Tables loaded with food. Nobles stood in clusters of silk and lace and jewels. Servants wove between them with silver trays. Knights waited near the walls. Their expressions were a study in contrasts. Curious, wary, dismissive. Some stared as if I were an animal put on display. A few looked honestly afraid. I smiled. Good evening, I said. I'm happy to be here. A ripple went through the crowd. People bowed, some deeper than others. Huber appeared at my elbow like a nervous ghost. Empress Rimuru, he said, allow me to present a few of our senior council members. He moved ahead with a series of introductions. Names, titles, districts. I shook hands, traded polite greetings, listened to carefully worded compliments about Tempest's growth and power. Every so often, someone slipped and said something honest. You are younger than I expected, one old noblewoman said, lips pinched. I thought you would be taller. A man in a green coat muttered before his wife elbowed him. You are far prettier than the rumors suggest, another commented. I smiled through all of it. Power does not check age, I told the old woman. Height is overrated, I told the man. It is more efficient to be closer to the ground. And I'm sure the rumors will catch up, I told the third, letting my aura curl just a little around the words. He went pale and took a step back. Benimaru and Cheyenne flanked me the entire time, silent walls of muscle and threat. Diablo watched from near one of the pillars with the relaxed posture of someone who planned 3 assassination routes before breakfast. Sui was nowhere to be seen, which meant he was right where he needed to be. After the rounds of introductions, the crowd opened like a curtain. She waited at the center of the gap. Maria Bel Rosso. She was a little shorter than me, with pale hair curled just so and eyes the color of clear ice. Her dress was red with a design that suggested flames without actually showing any. Jewelry glittered at her throat and wrists. Her smile was soft and sharp at the same time. Every noble around her watched us carefully. Empress Rimuru, Maria Bell said, stepping forward with a graceful dip of her head. What an honor to finally meet the famous ruler of Tempest. Her voice was sweet, almost musical, but there was a weight behind it that did not belong to someone her age. It is good to meet you as well, I said. Your letters were very courteous. I try, she replied. The council can be so rigid about language. I wanted to be sure you understood that not all of us fear you. She said the word fear with a slight emphasis that made it sound more like disdain. Oh, I know plenty of people fear me, I said lightly. It is not all that useful. Is it not? She asked. Her gaze met mine. For a moment, everything else blurred. I felt the pressure at once. A soft push at the edges of my mind. Not a blunt attempt to dominate, but a slow, sliding trick like someone trying to slip a hand into a pocket without being noticed. Warmth. Gentle approval. The suggestion that I could relax if I simply trusted her. She was trying to wrap her will around mine the way a spider wraps silk around prey. Intrusive pattern detected. Origin, Maria Bel Rosso. Structure, charm, and suggestion blend. Classification, mental enchantment. Seal's presence snapped in a place like a shield. The pressure broke against it and recoiled. To Maria Bell, it must have felt like leaning into a doorway and finding a wall where open air should be. Her eyes widened for a fraction of a second before she smoothed her expression. My smile did not change. This ball is lovely, I said. You must have worked hard on it. Her fingers tightened around her fan. I have had a great deal of experience organizing events, she said. My family hosts many gatherings for important guests, though none quite like this. It is not every day one welcomes a demon lord into a human hall. It is not every day a human hall insists on calling me a demon lord when I am here as an empress, I replied. A few nobles nearby shifted, not sure whether they should laugh. Maribel's smile turned a touch brittle. Titles are flexible things, she said. You know how humans are. Some cling to old stories, even when new realities appear. Give them time. They will adjust. Some will, I said. Some will not. Her gaze flicked to Benimru, then to Cheyenne, then back to me. You have brought quite an impressive escort, she said. Many rulers would not trust their own safety in a foreign city. I trust myself to handle problems that come my way, I said. That does not mean I leave my friends at home. There was something like distaste in her eyes at the word friends when applied to monsters. Of course, she said, loyalty is a powerful thing. So is caution. I admit, I did not expect you to accept the invitation. Declining would have been boring, I said. Besides, if you're going to talk about me in your council meetings, it is only fair that I get to see the room. She laughed. It sounded almost genuine. You are more forward than I imagined, she said. This will be an interesting evening. Oh, I hope so, I said. It would be a shame if I came all this way just for stale cake and bad wine. Her smile sharpened. I assure you, she said, nothing about tonight will be stale. She stepped back, turning with the sort of graceful spin that belonged on a stage. Nobles flowed around her to follow. When she was far enough away, Cheyenne leaned in, voice low. "She tried something on you," Cheyenne murmured. "I felt your aura shift." "She tried to nudge my mind," I said quietly. It bounced off. Benimaru's jaw clenched. His aura flared, a faint shimmer of heat that made the air between us waver. "In this hall," he said, in front of everyone. "She is testing," I said, "seeing what sticks." Seal blocked it before it could do anything. "Even so," he said. His hand had drifted toward his sword. I touched his wrist, just a light pressure. "Not here," I whispered. "Not yet." His fingers relaxed, but the fire in his eyes did not fade. "She is dangerous," he said. "I know," I replied. "That is why I came." The formal dance began after the first round of drinks. Musicians in the corner shifted into something slow and elegant. Couples moved into the open space at the center of the hall. Nobles watched me with a mix of expectation and unease. Do they want me to dance, I thought. Probably. Participation would increase perceived approachability and lower immediate suspicion. It also gives you an excuse to move through the room without appearing to patrol. Strategic dancing. Of course, I answered. I turned to Benimaru. "Well," I said, "want to make the humans nervous." He blinked. "You're asking me to dance in front of every noble in the region," he said. "Yes," I said. "I trust you more than any of these people to not step on me." Cheyenne looked offended. "I would never step on you," she said. "You would try to lead," I told her. She paused. "That is true," she said. Benimaru let out a slow breath and offered his hand. "As you command," he said with a faint smile. My fingers slid into his. His hand was warm and calloused. We walked out onto the floor together. A hush fell over the surrounding nobles. We took position. I placed my other hand lightly on his shoulder. He rested his free hand at my waist. For someone who spent most of his time training soldiers and planning battle formations, Benimaru moved with surprising grace. We fell into the steps easily. Seal helped by matching the tempo to my enhanced senses and gently nudging my feet when I risked tripping on the dress. "You are enjoying this," Benimaru murmured as we turned. "A little," I admitted. "Mostly, I am enjoying how worried they look." I could feel gazes on us from every direction, human dukes whispering behind their hands, counselors watching for signs of weakness. Maria Bell near the far edge of the room, eyes narrowed as she tracked every movement. "You know," Benimaru said, his voice a little lower, "you do not have to carry this entire thing alone." "I have all of you here," I said. "That already helps." "That is not what I mean," he said. We spun. For a moment, the world narrowed to the feel of his hand and the music. "What do you mean, then?" I asked, even though I knew. He looked down at me, eyes steady. "When you walk into a trap, you always act like you are the only piece that matters," he said. "The rest of us are not decorations. We are not here just to stand behind you and look dangerous. Let us carry some of the danger, too." I swallowed. "You do," I said softly. "You always do. I just do not like seeing you hurt because of me." "We made that choice a long time ago," he replied. "Do not steal it from us." Heat bloomed in my chest that had nothing to do with the score we were dancing to. "Fine," I said. "You win this round." His mouth curved. "I plan to win many rounds," he said before the music pulled us into the next pattern. The dance ended with a final turn. We stepped back, bowed to each other. Polite applause rippled through the hall. Before we could return to the edge, a figure stepped into our path. She had long purple hair tied back in a high tail, a body built like a predator in a dress that looked almost as ready for a fight as mine. Her eyes were sharp and amused. "Empress Rimuru," she said with an easy grin. "You are even more interesting than the stories say." I knew that face from reports. "Glinda," I said. "From Cerberus." Her smile widened a fraction. "You have good intelligence," she said. "Most nobles here just know me as a security contractor. They like that phrase better than mercenary. They also like calling us demon lords instead of rulers," I said. "Humans have strange taste in words." "But they do," she agreed. Benimaru shifted subtly, positioning himself between her and my more vulnerable side. Cheyenne moved closer to my other shoulder, hand resting near her sword. Glinda noticed. "No need to be so tense," she said. "If I wanted you dead, I would not walk up and introduce myself." "That is not as comforting as you think," Cheyenne said. Glinda laughed. "You are fun," she said. I like you already. Her gaze returned to me. Truth is, I have been curious about you since the council started shouting about a monster empress, she said. It is not every day a woman builds a nation from nothing, while every old man in a robe throws a tantrum. There are some women in robes shouting too, I said. Equal opportunity outrage. True, she said. Still, you did what a lot of us only talk about. That earns respect. She spoke casually, but there was a glint in her eyes that never left my face. She weighed every word, every reaction. I have to deal with the same nonsense on a smaller scale, she went on. Some clients think a woman cannot lead a team into danger. They would rather hire some loud fool who will get half their men killed. When I prove them wrong, they whine. Power makes small people uncomfortable, I said, especially when it does not look the way they expect. She tilted her head. Exactly, she said. So when I heard about you, I thought, finally, someone who understands. She took a sip from her glass, then lowered her voice slightly. That said, she continued, you should know that not everyone in this hall is playing on your side. Some do not care if this city burns as long as the right people take the blame. I assumed, I replied. Any names you feel like sharing? Her smile turned rueful. I'm a contractor, she said. My loyalty is expensive. My curiosity is free. So this conversation is curiosity, I said. Yes, she said. I wanted to see for myself if the Empress of JURA was just a story or a real person. So far, I like the answer. She lifted her glass slightly in a half-toast. If anyone here underestimates you because of your age or your dress, they are fools, she said. And fools die early in my line of work. That sounds like experience talking, I said. It is, she answered. For a moment, something like real understanding passed between us. Two people who had both spent a long time being underestimated for reasons that had nothing to do with actual strength. Then the moment passed. Enjoy the food, she said. Careful with the wine. She stepped aside, melting back into the crowd with professional ease. Benimaru watched her go. You trust her? He asked quietly. I trust that she will not lie without reason, I said. Her warning about the wine was probably not a joke. Then we do not drink, Cheyenne said. That would be obvious, I said. We did not want to show our hand too early. I glanced toward the long tables where servants were placing decanters and plates. Let's see how bold they are, I thought. Dinner began with the usual speeches. Counselors droned about trade and cooperation and the bright future of human-monster relations. I listened with half an ear while watching the movement of servants around the tables. Our delegation sat at the head table. Me at the center, Benimaru on my right, Shana on my left. Cheyenne stood a step behind me, close enough to act in a breath, far enough to avoid being seen as an immediate threat. Diablo sat farther down, smiling gently at anyone who dared meet his gaze. Rigard listened with honest attention, taking notes in his head for later. Plates arrived in neat order. Soup, meat, delicate little piles of vegetables. Everything looked clean and expensive. Then came the wine, crystal decanters, each placed carefully in front of us. The servants poured with practiced hands. Seal hummed in the back of my mind. Analyzing, I waited, fingers resting lightly on the stem of my glass, expression calm. Base composition, high-quality grape wine. Additives, minor flavor enchantments. Trace presence of a slow-acting neurotoxin in your decanter only. Just mine, I asked silently. Affirmative. Concentration is sufficient to kill an average human in several minutes. Your resistances will prevent bodily failure, but the substance is attempting to adapt. I rolled the stem of the glass between my fingers, trying to see what I can handle, I thought. Yes, the toxin carries a faint signature consistent with Greed series skills. Maria Bell is likely testing your tolerance. Heat flickered in my chest. At the far end of the table, Maria Bell raised her own glass with a smile that did not reach her eyes. To new alliances, she called. Everyone echoed the toast. Glasses lifted. Benimaru's hand tightened on the table beside my plate. His eyes flicked between my glass and Maria Bell. Poison, he whispered without moving his lips. I can smell something off. Of course he could. His nose was not as refined as Ranga's, but he had trained in battlefields full of smoke and blood. Confirmed, I murmured. Seal sees it. His aura flared, a faint shimmer of heat that made the air around him vibrate. Flames danced along the edge of his spirit in a way that would have turned heads if most of the nobles here had any magical sense. "One word," he said softly. "One word, and I will burn this hall down." I could see it. For a second, in my mind, I saw the floor cracking, chandeliers crashing, nobles screaming while Benimaru walked through the fire without flinching. Part of me liked that image a little too much. But if we did that now, we would get answers through fear and rubble. I wanted something cleaner first. I lifted the glass. "Rimuru," Benimaru hissed. "Trust me," I said. I brought the wine to my lips and took a slow sip. The taste was rich and sweet with a bitter edge that would fool most human tongues. The poison hit my throat like a line of ice, then spread through my chest in a prickle of cold heat. My body pushed back at once. Resistances that had carried me through much worse flared. Skills shifted. Seal moved with clinical precision, isolating the toxin, breaking it down. Foreign substance, attempting to attach to your magicules and use them as a channel to the brain. How rude, I thought. Countermeasure applied. Toxin neutralized. Secondary function detected. Data collection. Data collection, I asked. The poison was linked to an external anchor. It transmitted information about how your body resisted it. Source: ballroom balcony north side. I did not look toward that balcony. Can you trace it? I asked. Already done. Source confirmed as a device carried by an attendant under the Rosso crest. Of course. On my right, Benimaru gripped the table so hard the wood creaked. Well, I said quietly. That answers one question. They're not here to talk. What did it do to you? He asked. His voice was rough. Nothing lasting, I said. It hurt for a second. I have had worse. His eyes darkened. You should not have to have any at all, he said. I reached under the table and brushed my fingers against his hand. It was a small movement hidden by the tablecloth, but the contact grounded us both. I'm all right, I said. I needed to know how far they were willing to go on the first night. He stared at me for a moment, jaw tight, then squeezed my fingers once. If they try again, I will not stay seated, he said. I know, I replied softly. Save it for when we catch them in the act. Around us, the hall continued as if nothing had happened. Nobles laughed. Servants refilled plates. Maria Bell chatted with a group of counselors, face bright and open. Her gaze slid toward me once. Very brief. Very calm. Challenge accepted. I set my glass down. When dinner ends, I thought toward Seal. I want a map of every small item that could carry that sort of anchor. Already compiling. Priority targets identified. Shall I alert Sui? Yes, I answered. Have him shadow anyone who smells like Rosso money. Understood. The evening moved into its later stage. Some nobles grew sloppy with drink. Others slipped away to whisper in corners. The music shifted to something lighter. I circulated through the room, Benimaru and Cheyenne never more than a few steps away. We made small talk with people we would probably never see again. Some flattered. Some probed for information. I gave them as little as possible while still seeming friendly. At one point, I stepped out onto a small side balcony to catch my breath. The cool night air washed over my face. The city spread out below, lights marking streets and houses. Stars pricked the dark sky. Benimaru followed, closing the door behind us. Too much perfume, he said. Too many lies, I replied. We stood side by side at the railing. For a moment, the noise from the ballroom was just a muffled hum behind the glass. How bad does it look? He asked. On the surface, I said, they're playing nice. Underneath, they poison me in front of everyone and are making deals with mercenaries. Also, someone in our own system is feeding code to them. That part still bothers me more than the poison. His hand tightened on the railing. If it is someone close, he began. I know, I said. We will find them. We cannot assume guilt yet. He exhaled slowly. Your forgiveness is going to get you killed one day, he said. It is not yet, I answered. He turned toward me. The balcony light caught the lines of his face, the tension in his shoulders. When I saw you raise that glass, he said quietly, I felt something I did not like. The idea of you collapsing in a room full of enemies. The idea of them touching you while I watched. I do not know if I could have stayed still. I looked up at him. Our faces were close. I trust you to move when you must, I said. I also trust you to hold back when I ask. That is not easy. I know. His eyes searched mine. Rimuru, he said, voice low. You matter more to me than this entire hall. If they hurt you, I will not care what it does to our alliances. The words hit harder than any spell. My heart stuttered. For a moment, the Empress mask slipped. I was just myself, a strange slime who had somehow ended up with people who care more than I deserved. I stepped closer and rested my forehead lightly against his chest. His body went still, then relaxed. Slowly, his arms came up around me, careful and warm. I know, I said again, voice muffled against his coat. And I am not planning to die here. I still have paperwork to sign. He huffed a small laugh that shook through both of us. Trust you to ruin the mood with paperwork, he said. I am very romantic, I replied. We stayed like that for a few breaths, the sounds of the city below and the muffled music behind us. His hand moved up to my hair, fingers gentle. When I tilted my head back to look up at him, he hesitated for a second, then dipped his head. Our lips met in a brief, warm kiss that lit my nerves up in a different kind of fire. It was not long or dramatic, just real. When we pulled back, both of us looked a little stunned. He began. Yes, I said quickly. Later. We can talk about it later. Right now we need to deal with poison and politics. He nodded once, though his eyes were still a little bright. Understood, he said. We straightened. The Empress and her general again. Inside the hall, someone laughed too loudly. Glass broke. A servant hurried to clean it. The night kept moving. Update. Seal's voice cut cleanly through the moment. Sui has identified 3 devices carrying greed-linked anchors. 2 are rings worn by council members. 1 is a pendant carried by a servant assigned to the upper balcony. Any sign of them reacting to the poison? I asked silently. The servant adjusted their device when you drank. Maria Bell signaled subtly to one of the ring bearers. They are observing your behavior closely. So they know I survived, I thought. They know you did not collapse. They do not know how much damage, if any, was done. Good, I answered. Let's keep them guessing. I stepped back from the railing. Ready to go back in, I asked Benimru. If we must, he said. We must, I replied. I want them to see that they failed. We returned to the hall. Maria Bell stood near the center, taking congratulations for a successful evening as if she had not just tried to kill the guest of honor. Her gaze swept the room, then landed on me. For a heartbeat, our eyes locked. I smiled, calm and bright. Her fingers tightened around her glass, just enough to crack the stem. Wine spilled over her hand. There it is, I thought. The first small break. This was not over. The real game would start when we returned to Tempest, and the shadows inside our own walls moved. For now, the message was clear. She had declared war with a poison glass. I answered by standing, smiling, and refusing to fall. The man was already crying when I walked into the cell. His wrists were chained to the chair. His ankles were fixed to the floor. Sweat soaked his shirt, even though the dungeon air was cool. The torchlight made his eyes look too big. Diablo stood beside him, hands folded in front of him, as calm as if we were in a tea room. Ah, Rimu, Diablo said, bowing with that smooth, practiced movement. You honor this humble place with your presence. The man flinched when he heard my name. I stepped closer. The stone under my shoes was cold and a little damp. There was no smell of blood, only sweat and fear and old rock. How long has he been here? I asked. Not long, Diablo said. Time feels different when one is afraid. He smiled. The prisoner made a strangled sound. Sui waited in the shadow near the wall, arms folded, eyes half-lidded but alert. 2 guards stood behind the man, silent and tense. Who is he again? I asked. A clerk from the western gate, Sui said. He handled caravan manifests and travel papers. His signature appears on 3 shipments that later vanished. The man shook his head, breathing fast. I did not know, he blurted. I swear, I just stamped what they gave me. I did not know they would disappear. Please. His voice broke on the last word. Diablo rested a hand on the back of the chair. It would be wise to speak clearly, Diablo said. Confusion wastes time, and time is a kindness I choose to extend only while my mood is good. The man squeezed his eyes shut. Tears slid down his cheeks. Rimuru, he gasped. Empress, please. I have a wife. Children. I only did what the merchants told me. I did not betray Tempest. I love this city. I do. I watched him for a moment. His aura was a flicker of panic, not malice. No greed energy. No deliberate lies Seal could detect. Check him again, I thought. Heart rate elevated. Magic signature normal. No deep-layered skills. He is not the core leak. Thought so, I answered. Aloud, I said, what merchants? He licked his lips. Jalmile Company. He choked. His people. They said the paperwork was in order. They told me to stamp and file. I did not question because they always pay on time and they are important. If I refused, they would complain. I did not want to lose my job. Diablo tilted his head. So you sold caution for salary, he said softly. The man flinched as if slapped. I did not know, he repeated. I believed him. That was the problem. Enough, I said. He is not the one making decisions. Diablo lowered his hand. As you wish, he said. Shall I return him to his cell? I looked at the man. His shoulders shook. His eyes were red and swollen. No, I said. Put him on monitor duty for now. Away from sensitive papers. He works under a senior who has been cleared. Sui, assign someone to watch him and his family. Quietly, Sui nodded once. Understood, he said. The guards moved in at Diablo's gesture. The chains clicked free. The man nearly collapsed when they lifted him. He stared at me with something like worship and terror mixed together. Thank you, he whispered. I will not fail you again. Do not fail the people, I said. That is more important than me. They let him out. His steps shuffled on the stone. The door shut behind them with a heavy sound. Silence settled over the cell. Only me, Diablo, and Sui remained. Diablo turned to me, smile still gentle. It is interesting, he said. How many small lives can threaten a nation without meaning to? He said it like he was talking about dust on a table. I leaned against the cold wall and rubbed my forehead. That is the third one, I said. Stamp clerks, warehouse staff, a guard who let a caravan through without proper search. None of them really understand what they have done, but together they open holes in our walls. Pattern confirms earlier conclusion. Cerberus and Narasos are not relying on a single spy. They're using a network of small mistakes, guided by someone with higher access. Seal's tone was calm. That almost made it worse. How many more like that do you think we have? I asked her. Many. But only one can grant codes for high-level communication. Right, I thought. The code. I straightened and looked at Sui. What about the cipher origin? I asked. Any new progress? He stepped away from the wall and unrolled a thin sheet of paper. Lines of numbers and letters crossed it. My own translation notes overlaid in small strokes. We traced usage back for the last month, Sui said. The pattern centers on the trade office. Reports that should have taken one path were rerouted. A copy of each goes through a private ledger before leaving the building. Jalmile ledgers, Diablo added. Heat ticked at the base of my skull. Evidence looks bad, I said. It does, Sui replied. I hesitated. Jalmile was one of the first humans who looked at me and saw opportunity instead of a monster. He laughed loud, worked hard, helped build our trade web from nothing. Do you believe he is the leak? I asked. Sui frowned. He has motive, Sui said. If he chooses the right side in a war between humans and monsters, he can keep his networks and his life. But my instincts say he is not that kind of man. I let out a breath. Mine too, I said. So we treat him as a suspect, but not as guilty. Not yet. Diablo's eyes gleamed. I would be delighted to give him an opportunity to prove his loyalty, he said. No torture, I said at once. He placed a hand over his chest, looking wounded. Rimuru, he said. You wound me. You have no idea how many ways you could wound people, I replied. So let us keep this simple. Question him firmly. Watch what he does, not just what he says. If he's clean, I want him released with his dignity mostly intact. Mostly, Diablo echoed, amused. I pushed away from the wall. Do it, I said. I will speak to the council and the citizens. This mood is getting bad. Sui rolled the paper up again. People are afraid, he said. Rumors spread faster than truth. Outsiders are already being blamed in the markets. I said. A human merchant almost got punched for selling bad fruit. And did he? Diablo asked. I arrived before they decided, I said. So no. Diablo smiled. Then your presence is already soothing, he said. That is not enough, I said. Fixing this is my job. The torches flickered as a draft moved through the hall outside. The air tasted of ash and stone. Keep me updated, I told them. They bowed. I left the cell, the dungeon door closing behind me with a heavy echo. The corridors above were busy even in the fading evening. Guard patrolled in pairs. Officials hurried between offices with stacks of papers. I caught snatches of whispered conversations as I walked. Did you hear? They pulled in another clerk. From the gate this time, I think. Humans. It is always humans. Do not say that when the Empress can hear. My steps slowed for a moment. I leaned on the stone railing near a window and looked out over the capital. Tempest still looked bright. Lanterns along the streets. Shops open late. Children chasing each other in the plaza below. Smoke from cooking fires rose in soft lines. Sound carried up. Laughter. A raised voice. A dog bark. The clatter of a dropped crate followed by curses. On the surface, it was the same city. Underneath, there was a new tension. A little more space between monster and human when they passed in the street. Eyes that lingered a bit too long on foreign cloaks. Hands that drifted closer to weapons for no reason. I could feel it the way I sometimes felt a storm building in the pressure of the air. Stress indicators rising across central districts. Recorded incidents of citizen disputes involving accusations of betrayal have increased by 32% since your return. That precise, I thought. You requested quantitative tracking. I sighed. Yeah, I thought. I did. Footsteps approached behind me. Rimuru. Benimaru's voice. I turned. He walked toward me. Red hair pulled back, coat loose, sorted aside. His aura was a steady burn, more banked than it had been at the ball, but not calm. How bad, he asked, coming to stand at the railing beside me. Which part, I said. All of it, he replied. I rubbed the back of my neck. Diablo is going through suspects, I said. He is in his element, which is both useful and terrifying. We are finding small leaks everywhere. People who made mistakes, not real traitors. The cipher path points to trade. Right now, it makes Mjalmal look guilty. Benimaru's jaw tightened. You do not believe that, he said. I do not, I said. But belief is not proof. If we clear him too loudly and he is compromised, we open ourselves even more. If we treat him like a traitor without proof, we destroy something important in this city. He leaned on the railing, fingers curling around the stone. The festival felt like we were untouchable, he said quietly. Now people flinch when a stranger walks past them. I walked through the market earlier. A goblin woman pulled her child away from a human adventurer like he was on fire. I looked down at my hands. I did this, I said. He turned his head. This is not your fault, he said at once. I chose this path, I said. I chose to bring Tempest into human politics. I accepted the invitation. I drank their poison. My decisions brought Maria Bell and her games to our doorstep. Our people are now paying for that. They're afraid because I pulled the whole world closer. He watched my face. His grip on the railing tightened until his knuckles went white. You also built this city, he said. You gave them homes, food, safety. You're not the one choosing to betray that for money or threats. Do not take their sins onto your shoulders, too. His words were sharp, not gentle. That was what made them hit harder. You sound angry, I said. I am, he said. Not at you. At them. At the humans who think they can poison you at a dance and steal from us like we are blind children. His aura flared. Heat rippled against my arm. I placed my hand on his. Careful, I said. You will scorch the stone. He blinked, then let out a long breath. The heat settled back into his core. Sorry, he muttered. Do not be, I said. I like that you care enough to burn the building. A faint, reluctant smile pulled at his mouth. That is not a normal thing to like, he said. We are not normal people, I reminded him. His hand turned under mine, so our fingers touched properly now. He did not look at me, just let the contact steady him. The memory of the kiss on the balcony in Ingracia brushed my mind. My heart did a stupid little jump. He squeezed my hand once, then let go. We will find a real traitor, he said. And when we do, we will show the rest of Tempest that we protect our own truthfully. That will do more for morale than blaming the first easy target. I know, I said. I just hope we find him before Maria Bell makes her next move. Seals shifted in my mind, like someone clearing their throat. Progress update on the cipher analysis. Tell me, I thought. The energy residue on the encoded messages has a distinct pattern. It is not purely human magic. It carries a faint thread of the greed skill you encountered in Maria Bell. My stomach tightened. So she's touching our messages from far away, I thought. Yes. However, there's more. The greed thread is braided with another signature. One we have recorded inside Tempest. Whose, I asked. Cross-reference with all magic scans taken in the last month shows a match with one individual. Ildred of Falmouth. I straightened. Benimaru caught the change at once. What? He asked. Ildred, I said. The young noble who attached himself to the trade office, Benimaru said. The one who kept bringing new treaty ideas and helping with caravan schedules. Yes, I said. Seal says the greed mark on the cipher matches him. Benimaru swore under his breath. You think he has been working with Mariabelle the whole time? He asked. Or under her control, I said. Remember how she tried to push into my mind? That was just what she did in public. Imagine what she could do in private if she had time. Benimaru pushed away from the railing. Where's he now? He asked. Trade office, Sui said from the corridor. We turned. I had not heard him approach, but of course he was there. His cloak blended into the deeper shadows. He is in his office, Sui said. He has been working late every night since our return. He appeared shocked when I asked about the missing caravans. Too shocked, Benimaru muttered. Sui glanced at me. Shall I bring him down quietly? Sui asked. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to let Diablo pull him into a cell and peel the truth out with a smile. It would be simple, effective. The other part remembered Ildred in the council room 2 weeks ago, pushing for fair tariffs, talking about redemption for Falmouth, eyes bright with conviction. If that part was real, you can question him yourself first. Seal's suggestion was calm. If he is under control, I should feel it, I thought. There is a high chance. You have already resisted greed once. I nodded. Bring him to my office, I said to Sui. No shackles yet. Just a polite invitation from his empress. Sui vanished without a sound. Benimaru looked at me. Want me there? He asked. Yes, I said. If this goes wrong, you will be faster than I am in a confined space. He nodded. Then let us go, he said. We walked together through the corridors toward my office. Guards bowed as we passed. A few citizens waiting in the outer hall rose and moved aside, eyes wide. They could feel the tension rolling off us, even if they did not know the reason. My office door shut behind us with a dull thud. The room was familiar. Desk, shelves, a map of the region on one wall, cushioned chairs near the window. It felt smaller with the weight of what we were about to do. I stood behind the desk. Benimaru took a place near the window, one hand resting on the hilt of his sword. The late sun painted lines across his face. Minutes later, Sui appeared with Ildred. Ildred looked tired, dark circles under his eyes, hair a little messy. His clothes were neat but wrinkled, as if he had been leaning over papers for too long. He bowed deeply when he saw me. Empress Rimuru, he said. You called for me. Yes, I said. Come in. Close the door. Sui shut the door and moved to the side wall. Ildred straightened and stepped closer to the desk. His hands were steady. His aura looked like what I remembered. Earnest, a little nervous, full of hope for redemption. On the surface, I let Seal look deeper, scanning. Something cold brushed through the space between us. Not a physical breeze. An echo. Behind his own magic, there was a thin thread of something else. A smooth line tied around his core like a leash. Greed. There's an anchor on his soul. The signature matches the sample from Mariabelle, combined with his own magic. He has been linked to her since before he arrived in Tempest. My stomach twisted. Ildred, I said softly. How long have you been in our service now? He smiled a little. Almost 3 months, he said, since you gave me a chance to make up for what my country did. I have been trying to prove worthy of that trust. He meant it, or thought he did. I folded my hands on the desk. You have done good work, I said. Your ideas for caravan protection routes helped us a lot. Your suggestions on tariffs made fewer people angry at the markets. You integrated fast into our trade team. His shoulders relaxed slightly. Thank you, he said. It means a great deal to hear that from you. Benimaru's eyes did not soften. Ildred, he said, voice low. Do you know why you are here? The young noble glanced at him, then back at me. I assumed you wished to discuss the recent troubles, he said. If there is anything I can do to help, I will. The leash around his soul pulsed faintly. He believes that, on the conscious level. But underneath, I thought, the anchor tightens when he thinks about the missing caravans or the cipher. That is not his own will. I drew in a slow breath. Then help me understand something, I said aloud. The code that only senior Tempest officials should know. It was used to send information to the Rossos. Ildred blinked. I did not know we had a leak that high, he said. I watched his aura. The greed thread darkened. We found the energy of that skill on the messages, I continued. Seal traced it back. The signature matches you. Silence dropped into the room. Ildred stared at me. That is not possible, he said. I cannot even use skills like that. I have only weak magic. I have never met anyone from the Rassos. His voice shook. His conscious mind rejects the idea. The anchor is reacting. The greed skill is trying to hide. I stepped out from behind the desk and came around to stand in front of him. Ildred, I said quietly. Look at me. He raised his eyes. They were gray, like a cloudy sky. I reached out and placed my hand lightly against his chest, over his heart. Benimaru tensed. Sui shifted his stance. Magicules flowed from my palm. Not harsh, just steady. Beginning deep scan. I will try to touch the anchor. Careful, I thought. Seal reached through me. My vision blurred for a moment as we looked inside him together. Under his own magic, we found it. A glyph-shaped hole tied to a distant point. The greed anchor pulsed, once like a heartbeat that did not belong to his body. When my power touched it, it reacted. For a second, I saw what Ildred saw when he closed his eyes at night. A woman with ice-colored eyes and a smile like a knife. Maria Bell, standing in a sunlit room, finger gently pressing under the chin of a frightened boy. Words dripping sugar and poison. A promise whispered into his ear. Your family will live as long as you do, exactly as I say. Heat spiked behind my eyes. The anchor flared, then snapped like a taut string. Magic jolted through Ildred. He gasped and dropped to his knees, grabbing at his head. Ildred, I said. He clutched his hair, fingers digging into his scalp. No, he choked. She will hear. She will kill them. She will kill them. Benimaru stepped forward. What did you see? He asked. Ildred looked up. His eyes were wild now, the calm surface gone. I did not want to, he said. I swear I did not want to. She came to the prison in Falmouth. She said she could get my parents out, my little sister, all of them. She said all I had to do was walk where she told me and remember numbers. That is all. Just remember and write them where she said. She told me I was helping build peace, that you were dangerous, that monsters would kill us if we did not act first. He laughed once, a short broken sound. I wanted to believe you instead, he whispered. When I saw you, when I saw this city, I thought maybe she lied. But every time I tried to question it, something in my head tightened. My thoughts slipped away. I would wake up at my desk with ink on my hands and no memory of writing. The messages were already gone. He looked at me, tears tracking down his face. I betrayed you, he said. Even when I wanted to stop, my own mind betrayed me. I knelt in front of him. The stone was cold through the fabric of my dress. You were used, I said. She put a leash on your soul. That is not consent. He shook his head. It does not matter, he said. Because of me, she has everything. The layouts, the patrol routes, the list of key personnel. I gave it all away. Benimaru's grip on his sword hilt tightened until his knuckles went white again. Sui's eyes narrowed, his aura sharpening like a blade. The anchor was severed. He is no longer feeding her live data. However, she already has weeks of information. Can you check his head for any kind of kill switch? I asked Seal. Scanning. Ildred's breathing grew ragged. His hands trembled. Rimuru, he said, voice hoarse. Please. She will use me until there is nothing left. If she can still reach me at all, she will twist me again. Kill me now, before she makes me hurt you more. Before she makes me hurt them. He stared past me, as if he could see them through the wall. His family. She showed me what happens when people disappoint her, he whispered. I had seen enough minds broken by control to believe that. My chest hurt. I'm not killing you, I said. That is the one thing she would expect me to do. It keeps her hands clean. Another proof that monsters are cruel and humans are victims. I will not play her script. His fingers curled against the stone. You do not understand, he said. You think you can save everyone. You cannot. She is in my head. She will always be there. He is wrong in detail. The anchor is gone. There are scars, but no active link. However, he is right about one thing. What I asked internally. She anticipated failure. There is a secondary spell, hidden under the first. It is not linked to her mind. It is linked to his own determination. My pulse jumped. Show me, I thought. Seal sent a brief mental image. A node of packed magic near his core, tied to a condition. If I betray the command, let me die with them. Self-triggered, I thought. Yes. If he chooses to attack you with full force, the spell will ignite and use his body as fuel. A bomb. Ildred, I said sharply. Did she make you swear anything? Not to her. To yourself. He swallowed. I begged her to spare them, he said. She said I needed to prove my resolve. I said if I ever turned on a mission, I wanted to die the same day they did. I thought it showed loyalty. I did not know she would bind it. He laughed hollow. It seems I was very helpful, he said. Magic shifted around him. Benimaru's eyes widened. Rimuru, he said. I felt it too. The air in the room thickened. Ildred's aura pulled inward, compressing around that node. Ildred, I said. Stop. Look at me. He raised his head. His eyes were oddly calm now. I appreciate your kindness, he said. I do. You are kinder than anyone I have met. That is why you cannot bear to kill me. That is why I have to help you anyway. His hand moved toward his chest. Magic flared along his arm. Sui vanished. In the same instant, shadow threads snapped around Ildred's wrists, yanking his arms back. More shadow bands wrapped his chest, pinning him to the floor. The note of magic surged in panic, then stalled. Ildred gasped, eyes wide. Diablo appeared in the doorway, as if he had always been there, and we had simply failed to notice. My Diablo said, "What an interesting toy." He lifted his hand. Dark energy gathered around his fingers, not swirling, just condensing like ink. "Do not trigger it," I said at once. He smiled. "I would never do something that foolish in your presence," he said. He stepped closer, crouched beside Ildred, and studied the invisible construct only he and Seal could feel fully. "A self-hate not," Diablo murmured, bound to the idea of betrayal. Human magic is so messy when they tie it to guilt. He laid 2 fingers against Ildred's shoulder. The young man shuddered. "It tickles," Diablo said. "There, I have isolated it. It will not detonate unless I allow it." Ildred stared at him, then at me. "Why?" he whispered. "Because we decide how this ends," I said. "Not Maria Bell. Not your fear. Us." The room smelled faintly of ozone from Diablo's magic, mixed with sweat and the sharp tang of panic. Benimaru let out a breath he had been holding. His hand loosened on his sword. Sui's shadows slowly eased, though they stayed in place enough to keep Ildred down. Tears leaked from the corners of Ildred's eyes. "I do not deserve this," he said. "Probably not," I said. "But that is not how mercy works." He laughed again, softer this time. "I am sorry," he said. "For everything. For every line I wrote. For every patrol I exposed. For every life that will be lost because I was weak." "You are not weak," I said. "You were desperate." She took that and twisted it. "The blame is hers." His gaze dropped. "Will you save them?" he asked. "My family." I looked up at Diablo. He smiled, eyes half closed. "If you so wish it," he said, "I can direct an appropriate team to Falmouth and retrieve them. Quietly. Efficiently. Alive," I said. "Of course," he answered. He did not add what would happen to anyone who tried to stand in the way. He did not have to. Ildred's shoulders shook. "I will do anything," he whispered, "if you spare them. If you give them a life here. Lock me up. Use me. I do not care." His words broke apart at the edges. A long silence stretched through the room. Outside the window, the sky had gone almost dark. Lanterns glowed along the streets. I could hear distant shouts and clatter from the barracks yard. Inside, only our breathing and the faint hum of bound magic. I stood. "Sui," I said, "move him to a secured cell. No contact with anyone except me, you, Diablo, and Benimaru unless I say otherwise. Keep the restraints in place until Diablo confirms the spell is fully neutralized." Sui bowed. "Understood," he said. Shadow threads tightened and lifted Ildred gently from the floor. He did not fight. He looked at me as they carried him toward the door. "Rimuru," he said. I met his eyes. "If you cannot kill me," he said, "then at least let me pay it back. Let me stand where it is worst. Let me see her face when she realizes I did not break you." His voice steadied for that one line. I nodded once. "We will talk about terms when your mind is safe," I said. "For now, focus on staying alive." The door closed behind him and Sui. The room felt big and empty after they left. I walked back to the desk and sat down heavily. My hands shook once before I forced them still. Benimaru came around the side of the desk and rested both palms on the wood, leaning down enough that our eyes were level. "We finally have a name," he said. "A clear link to Maria Bell." "Yes," I said. "It means we can move," he went on. "We can warn the others, tighten our defenses, plan a strike." "Yes," I repeated. He watched me for another moment. "You are shaking," he said quietly. I looked down. My fingers trembled against the desk surface. "Yeah," I said. That happens when I almost watch someone explode in my office. His lips twitched in a not-quite smile. You held it together, he said. Better than I did. You were ready to cut him down, I said. I saw it. If Diablo had missed, he said I would have. I'm not letting anyone kill you. Not even by turning themselves into a spell. His voice had that same hard edge from the balcony in Ingracia. I swallowed. Thank you, I said. He straightened slowly, then reached out and set his hand over mine. You can break down later, he said. Not now. Now we need you. I know, I said. Seal spoke in my head again. One more thing. Of course, I thought. Ealdred's confession confirms our worst-case model. The enemy has detailed knowledge of our structure. The probability of a major attack on Tempest using this information in the near future is above 90%. How near? I asked. Within days. The air in my lungs felt colder. I thought so, I answered. I looked up at Benimaru and Diablo. All right, I said. Now we know what we are facing. The Rossos and their friends have been feeding off us through Ealdred. They have enough to try something big. We are going to make sure they regret that. Diablo's smile widened. I have been waiting to hear you say that, he said. Benimaru squeezed my hand once more, then let go. Give the order, he said. I drew in a long breath. The office smelled of ink and old paper and the faint trace of Diablo's magic. Outside, our city still moved, unaware of the storm about to hit it. Begin full war readiness, I said. Quietly. No public panic. Sui will adjust patrols. Benimaru, you coordinate battle plans. Diablo, prepare your people for a retrieval in Falmouth, and anything else we will need on short notice. They both nodded. Yes, RIMURU, Diablo said. As you command, Benimaru added. They left to carry out the orders, door closing behind them. For a moment, I was alone. I leaned back in the chair and stared at the map on the wall. Small colored pins marked trade routes, allied nations, places we had fought and won. Ealdred's words echoed in my mind. She will kill them. She will kill them. Maribel's face joined the thought, that ice-colored gaze and the way her glass had cracked when she realized the poison had failed. She had reached into my city without ever leaving hers. She had taken one frightened noble and turned him into a weapon inside my walls. That would not happen again. It will happen differently next time unless we act first. I know, I told Seal. My hands had stopped shaking. This was the price of stepping into the human world. They played dirty. They thought we would always react, never lead. They were about to learn that the Empress of JURA did not only defend. She hunted. The air in the war room felt heavier than usual, like the walls were listening. Benimaru stood at the head of the table, arms folded, eyes tracking the pins on the big map. Sui hovered near the far wall, half shadow. Cheyenne leaned against a pillar with her sword resting against her shoulder. Diablo sat in a chair like this was a casual afternoon chat instead of a war briefing. I had my hands on the table, fingers pressed against the wood. One more time, I said. Worst case scenario. Benimaru took a slow breath. Using what they took from Ealdred, he said, they know our patrol routes, barrier anchors, key officers, and the general composition of our forces. If they move fast, they can hit the weakest points before our adjustments fully settle. We already changed the rotations, Cheyenne said. Swapped out some guard posts, increased checks at the gates. They do not have the new pattern. For some routes, Sui said quietly. Not all. We had less than a week. There are gaps. He tapped the map. Here, and here, he added. If I were Cerberus, I would strike at dawn or midday when civilian traffic is thick and attention is divided. That would scare the people more, Cheyenne muttered. That is the point, Diablo said softly. Terror makes a nation easier to shape. Silence settled for a moment. Outside, faint sounds of the city filtered in. Wagons, voices, hammers in the construction yard. Tempest getting on with life because they trusted us to handle this. I exhaled. All right, I said. So we assume they will hit those spots or something close. We already raised guard numbers and quietly moved some families closer to the labyrinth entrance under the excuse of emergency drills. Ramiris is on alert. Veldora is sulking about being told he cannot punch anyone without my permission. Benimaru's mouth twitched. He will be useful if the attack is big enough, he said. I know, I said, which is why he is near the Colosseum with orders to be dramatic only when I say so. Diablo smiled. He asked me if he could at least flip a building as a warning. Diablo said. No building flipping unless we are already on fire, I said. Shine snorted. We might actually be on fire soon, she said. Then he can flip 2 buildings, I replied. The small ripple of laughter pushed back the tension for a breath. On the inside, Seal said in my head, your heart rate is still high. Yeah, I thought. I know. Aloud, I said. Any more news from Falmouth? Diablo's eyes sharpened. My team is in position, he said. We can extract Ealdred's family at your word. They're being held under watch, but the Rossos were arrogant enough to leave local guards in charge. It should not be difficult. Do it, I said. The sooner they are out of her hands, the less leverage she has. He bowed his head. As you wish, he said. Sui pointed to a spot near the city center. I also want to address this, he said. The main barrier nexus sits under the central square. If they know that, it will be a prime target. We have guards above, but the underground passage is still vulnerable. Put more of our best down there, Benimaru said. Rotate them often. Anyone behaving even slightly strange gets pulled out and checked. I already set that in motion, Sui replied. I stared at the map. Each pin was a street, a house, a life. We cannot stop everything, I said quietly. No matter how hard we try, they will get something through. I need everyone to accept that now. Benimaru's jaw clenched, but he nodded. We can make them pay triple for every success, he said. Exactly, I said. We protect as many as we can. When they show their hand, we break it. Shine straightened. Spoken like a true demon lord, she said. Empress, I corrected. Demon lord is my side job. She grinned. Empress, demon lord, slime, hopeless romantic, she said. You have many jobs. Heat pricked my cheeks. Shine, I said. Benimaru coughed into his hand, not very successful at hiding a smile. Back to work, I said quickly. We are not having that conversation in the war room. After the briefing, I went down to the holding cells. Ealdred sat on a narrow bed, back against the wall, eyes closed. Shadow restraints circled his wrists, not tight, but present. The air smelled of stone and oil from the lamps. He opened his eyes when I stopped outside the bars. Empress, he said. His voice was hoarse, but steadier than it had been in my office. Diablo had dismantled the self-destruction not without blowing him up. Seal confirmed it twice before I let myself relax. How is your head? I asked. Quieter, he said. Still a mess. But the constant pressure is gone. I did not realize how loud it was until it stopped. He rubbed the side of his temple. It feels like someone has been shouting in my skull for months and suddenly lost their voice, he said. I leaned against the bars. We are moving on your family, I said. Discreetly. Diablo is handling it. Something like painful hope flickered across his face. Thank you, he whispered. You do not owe us anything for that, I said. They were pawns in this long before I met you. He shook his head. I still want to help, he said. If she does not have them, she will try something else. She does not like loose pieces. I know, I said. He hesitated. There's one thing I did not tell you before, he said. Not because I want to hide it. Because I forgot until the anchor broke. He swallowed. Right before I left Falmouth, he said, I saw her receive a package. A small box from a messenger in Rosso colors. She opened it in front of me. Inside was a crystal, clear as glass with a black line running through it. She said it was a gift from an ally in the church. A way to put a crack in a demon's heart. I froze. A crack, I repeated. Those are her words, he said. I thought it was a metaphor. Now I'm not so sure. Seal hummed. Likely reference to a high-level greed artifact. Something designed to bypass standard resistances and fracture a core. Mine, I thought. Or your barrier. Or both. Greed likes to take more than one thing at once. I let out a slow breath. Thank you, I said to Ealdred. That helps. He looked tired, but there was a little more light in his eyes. I want her to see that I failed her plan, he said softly. That her toy broke. If you ever face her directly, and you can spare me long enough to stand in the room, I would like that. We will see, I said. First we survive what she sends next. I turned to go. Rimuru, he called. I paused and glanced back. I used to think you were a monster wearing a human face, he said. Now I think you are a human who happened to become a monster. I am glad I was wrong. It was such a simple, clumsy sentence. It hit harder than most flowery speeches. I smiled. Good, I said. I like being proven wrong, too. It means we did something right. The attack came just afternoon. I was in the council chamber, arguing with Veldora about the definition of sensible restraint, when the first alarm bell rang. It cut through the room like a blade. Everyone froze. Rigard stopped mid-sentence. Shuna looked up from her notes. Veldora's mouth stayed open on the word boring. A second bell joined the first. Gate. Central. I felt the barrier shiver. Not break. Not yet. But something tugged at it hard enough to make Seal pause. External pressure on the western gate. Simultaneous disturbance near the central nexus. I was already moving. Benimaru, I snapped through the link. Report. His answer came sharp and immediate. Western gate under attack, he said. Caravans exploded. Cerberus gear everywhere. I'm heading there with the vanguard. Cheyenne is already on site. So yeah, I thought. Underground disturbance, he replied. Unknown group, near barrier core. I am engaging. 2 fronts. Just like Sui predicted. Veldora cracked his knuckles. Finally, he said. Something interesting. Veldora, I said already at the door. Stay near the Colosseum. Protect civilians. Do not vaporize the city. Do you know how limiting that is? He complained. Shuna grabbed his sleeve. You promised you would follow Rimuru's orders, she said firmly. You can fight, but no city-scale spells. He huffed. Fine, he muttered. I will only use very large punches. I did not have time to argue. I shouted to Rigard. Initiate full shelter protocol. Get people into the labyrinth and reinforced basements. No panic. Tell them, this is a drill if you have to. He straightened, eyes wide but determined. Yes, Rimuru, he said. Then I was moving, feet barely touching the floor as I boosted my speed. The corridors blurred. Guards flattened themselves against the walls as I passed. Outside, Tempest looked wrong. Smoke already rose near the west, dark against the clear sky. The air carried the dull boom of distant explosions. Voices shouted, higher pitched than usual. Panic. I jumped, magic lifting me. The city dropped away under my feet as I shot across the rooftops toward the gate. Wind slapped my face. My heart pounded. Below, I saw goblins hustling children toward shelter doors. Lizard men forming lines with shields. Kijin barking orders. A human baker shoving bread into the hands of crying kids and pushing them towards safety. We trained for this, I reminded myself. We knew it was coming. That does not make it easier to watch. Yeah, I told Seal. I know. The western gate looked like a giant had taken a bite out of it. One of the caravans had blown apart right at the checkpoint. Wagons lay on their side, wheels spinning. Flames licked at broken crates and spilled grain. Smoke stung my nose. Cheyenne stood in the middle of the road with her sword buried in the ground, the shock of her last strike still fading in the ripples of the air. A ring of mercenaries lay scattered around her, some groaning, some very still. Cerberus. Their armor was dark, practical, marked with a 3-headed motif. Their movements were tight and coordinated even in chaos. Ranga crouched beside the broken gate, fur bristling. Electricity crackled along his back. Gobta and a squad of goblin riders darted through the smoke on wolves, hitting hit and run. Benimaru landed near me in a burst of heat. His cloak snapped. Status, I said. First wave disguised as traitors, he said. The moment they were inside the barrier's edge, they detonated hidden charges. Physical and magical explosives. They used the blast to disrupt our outer wards. He pointed at a set of faintly glowing stakes that had been driven into the ground just inside the arch of the gate. Those, he added, anchors. Someone slipped them past our checks. Seal examined them through my senses. They are linked to a distant caster. They are currently trying to drill a hole through the barrier field. I am compensating. Do we pull them out? I thought. Not yet. They're feeding me data. I am feeding them lies back. Of course you are, I answered. A Cerberus fighter lunged out of the smoke toward a pair of goblins, dragging an injured comrade. Cheyenne moved before I could. She tore her sword from the earth, the ground cracking with the force of it, and met him in one step. Blad met blad. Sparks flew. Her next strike knocked his weapon away. The one after that knocked him through a broken wagon. Do not touch my people, she shouted. Her aura flared, heavy and furious. Cheyenne, I called. She turned, eyes bright. Rimuru, she said. They came in through our front door like they own the place. We will show them who owns it, I said. Another wave rushed the gate, pushing past the broken wagons, trying to exploit the gap before we could reset. Benimaru flicked his wrist. Flames snapped into a tight line across the entrance, a curtain of heat that forced them to stop or get cooked. If you like walking into other people's houses, he said, you should at least knock. They hesitated. Even trained mercenaries did not like seeing the air turn into a wall of fire. Rimuru, he said without looking at me. I can hold this gate if you need to move. Sui said the underground is bad. Can you manage without me? I asked. He glanced at me, eyes steady. Do you trust me? He asked. Why did he always pick the annoying questions when we were in a hurry? Yes, I said. More than anyone. Something flickered in his gaze. Then go, he said. I will keep our door closed. I nodded once. Cheyenne, you are with him, I said. She grinned. Always, she said. I whistled. Ranga. He bounded over to me, eyes bright despite the smoke. Master, he said. We're going underground, I said. So we might need a bitey shadow. Ranga's tail wagged once, sharp. Understood, he said. I sprang up and away from the gate, heading toward the central square. Ranga ran below, a black streak along the streets. Behind me, I heard Benimaru bark orders, his voice cutting through the chaos. Cheyenne laughed the way she only did when she was about to break someone who had earned it. The sky above Tempest looked clear. The air felt wrong. The entrance to the barrier nexus was under a storage building beside the main plaza. On the surface, the square looked surprisingly calm. Shops hastily shuttered, stalls half abandoned. A few guards shepherding stragglers into shelter doors. Rigard stood near the fountain, directing people with a composure that would have shocked the nervous goblin he used to be. Rimuru, he called when he saw me. We're almost done here. Most citizens are in safe zones. Good, I said. Stay topside. Keep them moving. Anyone who looks like they are about to do something stupid, shout at them. Yes, he said. I dropped through the hidden hatch. The passage below was narrow and dim, lit by small crystals in the walls. The air was cool and smelled faintly of metal and magic. Ranga squeezed in behind me, fur brushing the stone. Sui's presence pulsed ahead. Status, I asked through the link. Intruders reached the outer ring, he said. They brought their own specialist. His tone carried something like respect and annoyance. I moved faster. The barrier chamber opened suddenly, an underground space the size of a small temple. Pillars carved with runes ringed a circular platform in the center, where a core crystal floated, pulsing with soft light. The air buzzed with energy. Sui stood near one of the pillars, shadows wrapped around his arms like extra limbs. 3 Cerberus operatives lay at his feet, bound and unconscious. The 4th person in the room was not Cerberus. She stood on the central platform, one hand raised toward the core, blonde hair tied back in a loose knot, clothes simple but well-made. She wore no visible armor, only a bracelet that shimmered like glass. Her magic felt wrong. Not monster, not ordinary human. Something sharp and greedy threaded through it. Glenda leaned casually against a pillar near the far side, sword drawn but tipped toward the ground. Her eyes flicked between the woman on the platform and me. Rimuru, she called. You're late. I was beginning to think you did not care about the most important room in your city. Ranga growled low. I stepped into the chamber. You bring a lot of trouble for someone I had a pleasant chat with at a ball, I said. Glenda shrugged. I said I respected you, she said. I never said we were on the same side. The blonde woman on the platform turned her head. Her eyes were dull brown, but they did not look at me. They looked through me like I was a mark on the wall. Seal nudged my attention toward her bracelet. Greed artifact detected. It is linked to a remote mind. The body is being piloted. A puppet, I thought. Yes. The actual controller is not present. Maria Bell. The woman spoke in a flat tone. Core calibration at 70%, she said. External pressure in sync. Structural weakness forming. Glenda sighed. You could at least pretend we have guests, she muttered. Priority is the task, the woman replied. Secondary is survival. Tertiary is conversation. I looked at the core. Fine cracks spidered across the surface of the floating crystal, too small for normal eyes. Greed threads tried to wrap around its structure, slipping between the layers like hands reaching for a throat. The core pulsed, fighting back. Seal reinforced it, pushing against the invading lines. They're trying to create a sympathetic fracture. In plain language, I thought. They want to crack this core here, so that whatever attack they launch from outside resonates, and splits your entire barrier network. Fun, I answered. Galinda straightened, rolling her shoulders. I told them you would arrive before we finished. she said. They did not believe me. They should start listening to you more, I said. She smiled in a way that did not reach her eyes. I tell them that every day, she replied. Sui moved silently to my side. They came in disguised as maintenance workers, he said. Proper paperwork. Correct passwords. One of our own verified them. They must have gotten those months ago. Before we even knew about Maria Bell, I said. Sui nodded once. I kept walking until I was at the edge of the central platform. Glinda, I said, I'm going to stop your friend now. Last chance to take your team and leave. She tilted her head. Tempting, she said, but then I would not get paid. And my boss has a very personal interest in cracking that shiny thing. Your boss is Maria Bell, I said. Today, she replied. She pays on time. That puts her above most nobles already. The puppet woman lifted her other hand. The bracelet flared. Calibration at 80%, she intoned. Greed lines brightened around the core. Seal pushed back harder. They are using a tuned resonance key to the crystal from that artifact box Ealdred described. Can you break it? I asked. Not instantly. I am fighting both the local conduit and the remote source. Do you know where the remote source is? I thought. Yes. Somewhere in Rosso territory. That does not help us in the next 30 seconds. Point. I stepped up onto the platform. The puppet woman turned fully toward me. Her expression did not change. You should not be here, she said. People keep telling me that, I replied. I never listen. I grab her wrist. The moment my fingers closed around the bracelet, greed surged. A spike of foreign will stabbed at my core, sharp and cold. It tried to hook into my skills, pulling them toward a conceptual void that smelled like Maribel's mind. Seal slammed a wall down. Denied. The spike shattered against it. Pain flared across my chest, then settled into a burn. The puppet's eyes widened for the first time. Unexpected resistance, she said. Story of my life, I said. I tore the bracelet from her wrist. It did not come off clean. The moment the band snapped open, it exploded into shards of invisible force. A jagged line of greed shot up my arm, pierced my shoulder, and drove toward my heart. Ranga howled. Sui yelled my name. I felt the spike hit the barrier around my soul. For a breath, everything went white. Then Seal bared her metaphorical teeth. You're not allowed in here. She grabbed the spike, wrapped it, and crushed it. The backlash tore through the conduit. The puppet's body jerked. Her eyes rolled back. She collapsed like someone had cut her strings. The greed threads around the core flickered, then dimmed. Remote connection severed. Core damage contained for now. Nice catch, I told Seal, breathing hard. You are welcome. My arm throbbed. I looked down. Black lines traced from my wrist to my shoulder, faint but visible like someone had drawn cracks in my skin. They pulsed with a dull ache. That is not ideal, I thought. No, it is not. Glinda whistled softly. Well, she said. That was a thing to watch. Sui moved to bind the fallen conduit. Glinda raised her sword. Round 2, she said. She moved like a blade thrown by someone who hated missing. 1 second, she was leaning against the pillar. The next, she was on the platform in front of me, sword sweeping in a tight arc aimed at my neck. I dropped my weight and twisted. Steel flashed past my face. Her follow-up kick drove toward my ribs. I caught her leg with my free hand, twisted, and threw her. She flipped in the air, landed on her feet, and grinned. Better than the ballroom floor, she said. Less perfume, I replied. We clashed again. Her sword style was precise, all clean lines and controlled power. No wasted movement. Cerberus had not hired a pretty face. They had hired a weapon. I did not bother to hide what I was. Magic flared along my skin. I hardened my body, let slime nature shift at the edges. Her blade glanced off with a spark. She adjusted instantly, changing angles, aiming for joints and eyes. You really do fight yourself, she said between strikes. No hidden body double. No illusions. That is almost refreshing. Glad you are enjoying yourself, I said. Her sword whistled toward my shoulder. I blocked with my forearm and felt the jolt all the way to my spine. The black cracks under my skin flared. Pain stabbed through my arm like someone had hammered a shard of ice into the bone. My grip faltered for a fraction of a second. She saw it. Her eyes sharpened. Ah, she breathed. There it is. She pressed harder, forcing me back. Sui stepped forward, shadows rising. Stay out of this, Glinda snapped. I'm not here for you. You're in our city, he said. You do not get to dictate the rules. I raised my hand. Hold, I said. Sui hesitated. Rimuru, he said. I need to know what that spike did to me, I said. Fighting her alone will tell me faster than any scan. He did not like it, but he obeyed. Ranga prowled around the platform, teeth bared, waiting for my word. Glinda tilted her head. Are you sure you want to test that right now? She asked. Looks painful. It is, I said. Pain is a good teacher. We collided again. I shifted forms in small ways. Bones softened to absorb impact. Limbs stretched past human limits for reach. She adapted, slicing at extended joints, using my own flexibility against me. The cracks in my arm crawled higher with every strain, creeping toward my chest. Seal monitored it in icy detail. The spike left a conceptual splinter. Every time you exert power through that limb, it digs deeper. Recommend limiting heavy output from that side. I am right-handed, I thought, so use your left now. Glinda laughed when I switched my lead foot and started punching with the other hand. You are stubborn, she said. Compliment accepted, I replied. Her blade nicked my cheek. Warmth slid down my skin. Blood. It had been a while since I saw my own blood. The metallic smell hit my nose. The taste ghosted on my tongue where a drop reached my lip. A flicker of old fights flashed in the back of my mind. Orc Lord, Charybdis, Clayman's puppets. It all felt so far away suddenly. Focus, Seal snapped. I did. I slammed my knee into Glinda's gut, hard enough to knock the breath out of an average person. She rolled with it, grinned through a wince, and drove her elbow toward my throat. We traded blows, steel and flesh and magic all mixed. Around us, the core pulsed, the cracks on its surface slowly sealing as Seal diverted more power to repairs. Above, the city shook with distant impacts. I heard a roar that sounded a lot like Veldora enjoying himself. Sui's shadows lashed out when stray mercenaries tried to force their way into the chamber, dragging them back into unconsciousness before they could get close. This was only one piece of the fight. Then the world shuddered. A deep boom rolled through the stone under our feet, different from explosions or falling debris. The core flickered. External strike on the outer barrier layer. Source, western sky. Power level high. How high, I asked. Enough that if I were not reinforcing, the barrier would have broken. Glinda's eyes flicked toward the core, then back to me. Looks like they started without us, she said. Looks like they are impatient, I said. The black cracks in my arm pulsed in time with a distant strike. That is not good, I thought. Agreed. They're using you as a conduit, Seal added. The splinter connects your core to whatever that thing is in the sky. Can you cut it, I asked. Not quickly. Not without damaging you. I bit back a curse. Glinda drove in, sword lancing toward my ribs. I twisted, but the movement pulled on the cracks. Pain exploded up my side. The blade grazed me, slicing through dress and skin. Hot blood spilled, soaking the fabric. Ranga snapped, lightning flashing from his fur in a sharp arc that forced Glinda to leap back or get cooked. She skidded across the platform, boots ringing on stone. Your pet is protective, she said. He has good taste, I replied, pressing my hand to my side. My fingers came away red. The wound was shallow by my standards, but the greed splinter seized on it, trying to widen the damage. Healing is slow on that side, Seal said. Interference from the foreign concept. So they knives in my arm and a line in the sky, I thought. Yes. Another boom rolled through the city. Second strike on the barrier. Same source. They are probing. Can we see it, I asked. Not from here. We need to go above ground. Glinda adjusted her grip on the sword. I'm starting to think I'm not your main problem today, she said. You are very annoying, but no, I said. She laughed. Then maybe I should help, she said. I blinked. What, I said. She raised her free hand slightly. I told you at the ball, she said. I respect what you built. I am not loyal to Maria Bell. I am loyal to my contract. If she pays, I work. But I do not like being used as a disposable piece in a game I did not design. Her gaze flicked to the fallen puppet, then to the core. She does not care if this whole city collapses as long as she gets the result she wants, Glinda said. That is bad business. So what, I asked. You changed sides in the middle of a job. She shrugged. I changed tactics, she said. If I walk out with some of my people alive, and you still standing, I can argue that I upheld my part while refusing to die for hers. Sui's eyes narrowed. We're supposed to trust you, he said. No, she replied. You're supposed to watch me very closely and use me while I use you. That is how real professionals work. I stared at her for a second. Ranga shifted at my side, muscles tense. She is dangerous, he said through the link. Yes, I thought. She is also telling the truth about her priorities, Seal added. For now, I exhaled. Fine, I said. Temporary truce. You help me stop whatever is hitting my sky, and keep this core alive. I will not kill or imprison you today. After that, we see. Glinda smiled, sharp and surprisingly tired. Deal, she said. She slid her sword into its sheath and stepped off the platform. Your arm looks bad, she added. You might want to hurry before that crack reaches something important. We emerged back into the central square to find the sky wrong. A dark shape hung high above the city, just beyond the barrier layer. Not a dragon, not a ship. A jagged shard of something that looked like crystal and shadow fused together, spinning slowly on its axis. Every rotation sent out a ripple of force that slammed into our wards. The barrier shimmered with each hit. The air buzzed. My skin prickled. Greed artifact, amplified by a large-scale array in the upper atmosphere, Seal said. It is tuned to resonate with our core and with the splinter in your arm. They're trying to crack you and the barrier at the same time. Multitasking, I thought. I hate overachievers. Benimaru's energy flared near the west. Veldora roared again, closer this time. Shine's voice cut through a cluster of shouts. Tempest was holding. Barely. Glinda shaded her eyes, looking up. That is ugly, she said. Do you know what it is? I asked. Rumors, she said. They call it a spear of avarice. Some holy artifact the Rassos procured. Or stole. Depends who you ask. Supposed to pierce any defense if given enough time. With my arm as a target, I said. Probably, she replied. You did drink that pretty poison for them. My fingers dug into my own upper arm. The cracks pulsed, now faintly visible even through the fabric of the dress. It traced up toward my collarbone, black on pale blue skin. How long until it breaks through? I asked Seal. If we do nothing, minutes. Fine time, I thought. We can reinforce locally, but the pressure will keep building. We need to disrupt the artifact. So we take it down, I said aloud. Glinda glanced at me. And how do you plan to reach something that high? She asked. I smiled, even though my chest hurt. I'm a slime, I said. I'm very good at going where I should not. I reached out and grabbed the edge of the barrier. Most people saw it as empty air. To me, it felt like a solid sheet of magic, humming under my fingers. Seal flowed into it, merging my will with the structure. Light flared around my hand. Rimuru, Ranga barked. I'm fine, I lied. You're not fine, Seal said. But I will keep you alive. I pushed. The barrier flexed. The world tilted. In the next breath, I was not standing in the square anymore. I was standing on the barrier itself, high above the city, with the sky cold and vast around me. Wind tore my hair and dress. Tempest spread out below, like a toy map. The spear of avarice loomed ahead, closer now, spinning slowly as it ground against the barrier from the outside. Up here, I could see the lines of the array feeding it. Threads of magic stretched off toward the horizon, anchored in distant points I could not see. Maribel's work. The cracks in my arm screamed. Every turn of the spear tugged on them. Every tug sent a stab of pain toward my core. Seal wrapped herself around the damaged area, containing the worst of it. You cannot stay here long, she warned. I know, I said. I stepped toward the spear. Greed pulsed from it like heat from a forge. It wanted everything. My barrier. My body. My city. No, I said. I raised my uninjured hand. Magic boiled up from my core, raw and furious. Black flame was too messy here. Collapse magic would punch a hole through my own sky. I needed something precise. Seal offered a construct, clean and sharp. Conceptual severance. We target the link, not the mass. Cut the cord, I thought. Exactly. I shaped the spell, letting her guide my hand. A thin blade of pale light formed in the air, humming. The spear spun toward me. I met it. The blade sliced through one of the main anchors. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the spear shuddered. The shard of crystal flickered like a glitch in a picture. A wave of force slammed through the barrier into my arm. Pain exploded from the cracks, ripping up my shoulder and into my chest. I tasted iron and ash. My knees buckled. Hold, Seal snapped. I'm trying, I thought through clenched teeth. The spear's spin faltered. One of the anchor lines snapped, flaring and then vanishing. "One link down," Seal said. "Two main ones left." The world tilted again. My vision doubled. "Again," I said. "You are at your tolerance limit." "Again," I repeated. She sighed in a way that only I heard. "You are impossible." She helped me anyway. We formed a second blade. This one shook more in my hand. My injured arm felt like it was full of broken glass. Every breath stabbed. I stepped forward. The spear lunged, drawn to the damage like a predator. I cut the second anchor. The backlash hit me harder. Something tore inside my chest with a sickening pull. I heard my own voice as if from a distance, a short, raw cry. The spear of avarice lurched. Its rotation went jerky. Below, the barrier shimmered. Tempest's rooftops wavered. "Last link," Seal said. Her voice sounded strained for the first time. I saw it, flickering at the base of a spear. A thick line of magic that did not stretch outward but downward. Into me. Of course, I thought. They tied the last anchor directly to the splinter in your arm. That is why the pain is intensifying. If we cut it, I asked, do we cut me? If we do nothing, it will drill into your core and then the city. If we cut it, we break the spear, but the splinter will try to tear loose. You will be hurt. How badly? I asked. Badly. Wind roared around us. Below, I could feel Benimaru's energy hot and steady. Shine's wild swing of power. Veldora's delighted blasts. Diablo's cold, precise movements in a distant direction as he set his own plans in motion. If I fell now, they would keep fighting. But the whole plan, the diplomacy, the balance between nations, the promise I made to the people staring up at that balcony during the festival, all of it sat on the idea that I would stand at the center when everything shook. "I'm not dying today," I told Seal. "That would be inconvenient," she replied. "Then we cut it," I said. We shaped the last blade. It burned in my hand, bright and thin. The spear shuddered closer, greed screaming without sound. I drove the blade into the final link. For an instant, I felt Mariabelle's presence through the connection. A flash of cold amusement, a hint of surprise, and the sharp taste of frustration when she realized I was not breaking the way she expected. Then the link snapped. The spear of avarice shattered. It did not explode outward. It imploded, folding into itself in a silent, crushing collapse that left only a smear of dark magic in the sky before even that faded. The barrier shook. Then it steadied. Below, the city held. Inside my chest, something else gave way. The splinter in my arm ripped free, tearing through the cracks it had made. Pain hit me like a physical blow. I heard myself scream. The sound ripped my throat raw. My vision went white, then black, then white again in flickers. I fell. The barrier rushed up to meet me. Seal grabbed whatever she could, trying to slow the descent. We crashed back into the physical layer of the barrier at an angle instead of straight forward. Magic tore under our weight. The next thing I knew, I was slamming into a rooftop. Tiles shattered under me. Wood cracked. We punched through the roof of a building near the central square, crashed through a ceiling, and hit the floor below hard enough to bounce. The world went soundless for a second. Then everything came back in a rush. Pain, dust, the stink of plaster and smoke. I lay on my back, staring at a ceiling with a hole in it. Tiny bits of debris pattered down. Ranga's howl cut through the ringing in my ears. "Master," he was there a heartbeat later, bursting through the broken doorway. His paws skidded on the debris as he reached me. He lowered his head and nudged my shoulder carefully, eyes wide and terrified. "Do not die," he said. "Do not die." I tried to speak. My chest hurt so much that even drawing air felt like someone was scraping the inside of my ribs with hot wire. The black cracks had spread across my right side, lacing up toward my neck and down toward my ribs. The skin there felt cold and hot at the same time. Healing magic dripped into them and vanished like water on a hot plate. "You tore a portion of your soul layer," Seal said quietly. "We stopped the worst of it, but you're not going to be moving normally for a while." Define a while, I thought weakly. If you were anyone else, dead. For you, days of vulnerability. Maybe more. "Fun," I replied. The room spun. I heard footsteps pounding, voices shouting. Benimaru appeared in the shattered doorway, breath harsh, hair wild, eyes full of fire and panic. He saw me. The panic hardened into something else. I had seen him angry. I had seen him in battle. I had never seen this. "Rimuru," he said. He crossed the distance in 3 strides, dropping to his knees beside me. His hands hovered over me, afraid to touch and afraid not to. "I'm here," I managed. My voice sounded thin and raw. His jaw clenched. "What happened?" he asked. "Spears," I said. "Greedy ones. I cut them. They cut back." He looked up at the hole in the roof. The faint trace of magic still lingered in the air. His fist shook. "You went up alone," he said. "I did not have time to send invitations," I replied. He closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, they were wet and furious. "You idiot," he said. Probably I agreed. He leaned down and pressed his forehead gently against mine, careful not to jostle my broken side. "You're not allowed to die before we have a second proper date," he said, voice low and rough. Despite everything, a small laugh escaped me. It turned into a cough halfway, sending a spike of pain through my chest. "Okay," I whispered. "I will put it in my schedule." He pulled back, cupped my face with hands that shook. His thumbs brushed away dust and a smear of blood. "We need to get you to Shuna," he said. "Now, careful," Seal warned in my mind. Moving too fast could make the tear worse. "We go slow," I whispered. "Carefully." Benimaru heard something in my tone and nodded. "Ranga," he said, "we need you." Ranga lowered himself until he was almost flat against the floor. "Put Master on my back," he said. "I will not let her fall." They moved gently, as if I were made of glass. Every shift sent flashes of pain through me. My vision blurred. By the time they got me on Ranga's back, I was sweating and shaking. The world outside the building was still chaos. Smoke, shouts, the distant crash of something large falling. But the sky was clear. The spear was gone. The barrier shimmered, damaged but intact. Tempest still stood. "See," I told myself as Ranga carried me toward the castle, Benimaru running at our side. "Worth it, worth it," Seal agreed softly. My consciousness flickered. Somewhere behind us, Glinda looked up at the clean sky from the edge of the central square. She touched the cut on her lip where my fist had caught her earlier and let out a low whistle. "She really did break it," she said to no one. Alone, a Cerberus lieutenant limped up beside her. "What now, leader?" he asked. She watched the castle where Ranga disappeared with me on his back. "Now," she said, "we decide if we're going to die for a girl who sits in a safe room miles away and calls it war, or for the city that just bled to keep us all from being buried under holy rubble." She turned away from the gate, away from the route that would lead her safely out. "Gather our people," she ordered. "We are changing employers for the rest of the day." I did not see any of that. The pain finally pushed me under halfway to the castle. The last thing I felt was Benimaru's hand on my shoulder and Ranga's breath under me, steady and fierce. "Do not let go," Benimaru said. "I'm not going anywhere," I tried to say. The words did not make it out. Darkness rose up, thick and heavy. Seal's presence stayed with me, a steady point in the black. "Sleep," she said. "I will watch. When I wake up, everything hurts. It is not the sharp kind of pain you get from a cut or broken bone. It is deep and strange, like someone reached inside my chest and scraped along the edges of something that should never be touched. The ceiling above me is familiar stone, smooth and pale. The air smells of herbs, clean cloth, and faint blood. Infirmary. Castle. I try to move my right arm. Fire shoots from my wrist to my ribs. I suck in a breath. Rimuru. Shuna leans over me, pink hair a little messy, eyes rimmed red. She presses a hand gently to my shoulder. "Do not move suddenly," she says. "You will tear the wounds again." Her voice trembles even though she is trying to sound calm. "How bad?" I croak. My throat feels raw, like I've been screaming. She hesitates. Seal answers instead. "You are alive." That is the good part. That is the kind of opening that makes me nervous, I think. You have a soul layer tear focused along the path that splinter carved through your arm and chest. Short version, I think. Am I dying? No. Not if you stop trying to stand up every time something explodes. Shuna frowns. "You are making faces," she says. "Is Seal lecturing you?" "A little, I admit." Her eyes soften and harden at the same time. "Good," she says. "You frightened all of us." I turn my head slowly. We are in one of the larger infirmary rooms. Light filters in through high windows. Several empty beds line the walls. Most of them carry the imprint of recent use. Bandage rolls and potion bottles fill a table nearby. My right side is wrapped in layers of white cloth, stained faintly pink near my ribs. Black lines trail out from under the bandages along my neck and arm, thin as cracks in glass. They pulse faintly. Still there, I say. Shuna follows my gaze. They are fading, she says. Very slowly. Seal and I are keeping them contained, but the damage is not something normal magic can fix. She is right, Seal adds. This is conceptual damage. Healing the body is simple. Healing the soul is harder. Think of it like a cracked core in a magic crystal. It still works, but push too much power through and it will break. So I should not throw myself at any more divine spears for a while, I think. That would be ideal. The door opens. Benimaru steps in. He looks like he has not slept since I fell. His coat is clean but rumpled. There's a smear of dried blood near his collar that is not his. His eyes are darker than usual, the red light in them banked deep. He stops when he sees me awake. For a heartbeat, he just stares. Hey, I say. My voice comes out softer than I intended. He crosses the room in 3 strides. Shuna moves aside with a small nod. Benimaru drops to one knee beside the bed. His hand hovers above my good arm, fingers flexing like he wants to grab and is afraid to. Can I? He asks quietly. Yes, I say. He takes my left hand in both of his. His grip is warm and careful, like he is holding something fragile, even though we both know I am anything but. You were out for almost a day, he says. We thought you might not wake at all. A day, I repeat. Bits of memory slide back into place. The spear in the sky. The cut of the anchors. The pain when a last link snapped. Falling. Roof. Floor. Ranga. Benimaru's face above me. What happened after I blacked out, I ask. His jaw tightens. You want the short version or the whole thing, he says. Whole, I say. No one will give me honest reports if I look weak. So I need to hear it from you first while I'm still only half awake. A flicker of reluctant amusement crosses his face. You are impossible, he mutters. You like that, I say. He squeezes my hand once, then exhales. When you cut the last link, the spear imploded, he says. The barrier held. The sky cleared. For a second, everyone thought the battle was over. Then you came down through a building and hit the floor hard enough to break the foundation. Sorry about the house, I say. We will rebuild it, he says. The owner cried when he heard it was you who crashed through. He is already telling people he will put a plaque on the repaired roof. Of course he is. When you hit, the cracks spread across your side. Benimaru continues. You were bleeding and not healing. Ranga howled. Shuna and I arrived right after. You tried to joke, and then you went limp. He swallows. For a moment, you did not feel like you were there at all, he says. Like I was holding empty cloth. My chest aches in a different way now. I'm sorry, I say. He shakes his head. Stop apologizing, he says. You saved the city. Again. I just do not like watching you fall out of the sky. Noted, I say. I will try to schedule my dramatic collapses where you cannot see them. He snorts. After that, something snapped in everyone, he says. Your blood hit the ground. The smell went through the whole street. The Cerberus mercenaries already knew they were in trouble. When Cheyenne realized how bad your injury was, she stopped holding back. I imagine it. Cheyenne, who already hits too hard when she is smiling, watching me get carried out broken and nearly dead. How bad, I asked. The western gate is gone, he says. There's a crater where the arch used to be. Most of the first wave is dead or captured. Glinda called a retreat for her people before Cheyenne could reach them. Good timing. If she had been 30 heartbeats slower, there would have been nothing left for anyone to hire. I let out a slow breath. Veldora, I ask. Benimaru rolls his eyes. He was actually controlled, he says. Mostly because Shuna hung on his arm the whole time, and because you forbade him from using city-scale spells. He limited himself to punching the bigger constructs into rubble and scaring the life out of anything that tried to flee over the walls. That is controlled for him, I say. Yes, Benimaru says. He also keeps asking when he can punch Mariabelle personally. I sigh. In line, I say. Shuna clears her throat. Rimuru, she says. The battle outside the walls is finished. The enemy retreated when the spear fell. Our casualties are heavy, but not catastrophic. No civilian districts were destroyed. The barriers held where they needed to. That is the official report. Her voice wavers slightly on the word casualties. How many, I ask. She meets my eyes. 33 dead, she says. Mostly gate guards and scouts who were caught in the first explosions. More wounded. So will not fight for a while. None are beyond my help. 33 lives. It is not a number that would shock an old world general. It is a small number in a war. It feels huge. They came for my head and got my people instead, I say. That is on me. Benimaru squeezes my hand hard enough to sting. No, he says. They chose to attack us. They chose to use human bombs at our gates. They chose to aim a sacred weapon at your heart. This is on them. His aura flares. For a second, the air around him feels like the surface of the sun, barely held in check. Shuna moves closer and lays a hand on his shoulder. Calm, she murmurs. Rimuru does not need your fire making the room hotter. He drags in a breath and forces it out. The heat drops back to a steady burn. How long was I out? I ask again. About 20 hours, Shuna says. You drifted in and out a few times. Mostly you were in the soul corridor. Veldora, try to bite whatever hurt you, Seal adds. I had to stop him from tearing at the wound directly. It was the thought that counted. A faint memory surfaces. A corridor of shining walls inside my inner world. Veldora, pacing like a caged storm, eyes full of a cold rage I had never seen in him before. His hand pressed to the crack in my soul that glowed black and white at once. He had looked up at me. You're not allowed to go first, he had said, voice low and deadly. I was sealed for centuries. I am older. I'm tired of watching my family leave. I will not let you vanish before I do. Then he had turned and roared into the dark, a sound that shook the whole inner space. I remember, I say slowly. Shuna frowns. Remember what? She asks. Veldora being dramatic. I answer. We could talk to him later. Right now I need to know what we are doing next. Benimaru stares at me. You just woke up from having your soul stabbed, he says. You can barely move your arm. And your first thought is what to do next. My first thought was ow, I say. My second thought was what next. We do not get to rest until the Rosso problem is gone. Silence hangs for a moment. Shuna bites her lip. Benimaru looks like he wants to argue. Seal cuts in. She is correct. The enemy has already attempted a decapitation strike. If we only patch the walls, they will try again. Thank you, I think. That does not mean I approve of you walking out of this bed today, she adds. You need to move carefully. Overuse will widen the crack. So I walk, not fly, I think. Exactly. I look at Shuna. Can I stand, I ask. Medically, she says, it is unwise. That is not a no, I say. She closes her eyes briefly. You will not listen if I say no, she says. So I will say this instead. If you get up now, you go to one meeting. Only one. You sit the whole time. You let Benimaru or Ranga support you if you feel faint. Then you come back and lie down while we figure out how to fix your soul. If you push beyond that, I will personally knock you out with a spell and tie you to the bed. Her eyes are bright with tears and iron. I believe her. One meeting, I say. Then I come back. Swear, she says. I hesitate. Benimaru tightens his grip on my hand. Please, he says. I sigh. I swear, I say. One meeting. Seal mutters in my head. I will hold you to that. With her help, I sit up. The room tilts and steadies. Sweat breaks out along my spine. Every breath sends a dull ache through my chest. The cracks on my arm pulse in time with my heart. I grit my teeth and swing my legs over the side of the bed. Benimaru takes most of my weight when I stand. He is gentle and stubborn at the same time. Shuna fusses with the bandages, tightening a wrap here, smoothing a wrinkle there. She adjusts a light robe over my shoulders to hide the worst of the marks. At least let me make you look like an empress, she says. Do I ever, I ask. She smiles a little through the worry. You do now, she says. The council room is quieter than usual. That says a lot. Normally, it hums with voices, rustling papers, small arguments. Today, there is a heaviness in the air that even the servants feel. When I step through the door with Benimaru at my side, every conversation stops. Rigard, Shuna, C, Diablo, Cheyenne, Jalmile, and a few other key officers are already there. Glinda stands near the far wall, arms folded, Cerberus cloak rolled and tucked under her belt instead of around her shoulders. All eyes go to me. I let go of Benimaru's arm and walk the last few steps to the head of the table on my own. Every movement hurts, but I keep my back straight. I drop into my chair with controlled care, then exhale slowly. Cheyenne's hands slam down on the table. Do not you dare stand up again without calling me, she says. I will carry you if I have to. You look awful. Love you too, I say. Her eyes shine with anger and something softer. Rigord bows deeply. Empress Rimuru, he says, voice thick. Welcome back. Thank you, I say. Let's get to it. Report. Sui goes first. He always does. Enemy ground forces suffered significant losses, he says. Cerberus units that remained loyal to the Rossos retreated when they realized the sky weapon failed. Glinda and a portion of her company broke from the main force and assisted with civilian protection. I have their names and actions recorded. He glances at Glinda. She lifts a hand in a lazy half-wave. I thought my new potential employer might appreciate a little effort, she says. Shine scowls. We are not hiring you, she says. We will see, Glinda replies. Diablo smiles, eyes half closed. I must admit, he says, watching you decide to side with us while your former allies fled was entertaining. He looks at me. I also completed the extraction from Falmouth, he adds. Ildred's family is in protective custody, resting and fed. No casualties on our side. A small knot in my chest unwinds. Good, I say. Jalmile clears his throat loudly and raises a hand like a student. Ah, Rimuru, he says. Before we continue, I feel I should ask. Am I still under suspicion, or can my heart stop try claw its way out of my chest every time Sui looks at me? His joke is thin, his smile strained. Sweat beads along his hairline, despite the cool room. I meet his eyes. For a while, the evidence pointed your way, I say. The messages passed through your network. People using your company as cover signed off on stolen shipments. It looked bad. He winces. It did, he says. But, I continue, we have confirmed that the real leak was Ildred under mental control from Maria Bell. The cipher and the Greed's signature traced him. Your ledgers were used because they were efficient, not because you chose to betray us. His shoulders sag. So I'm cleared, he says. Formally, Sui says. Yes. That does not mean I will stop checking your paperwork. Jalmile laughs weakly. I would be disappointed if you did, he says. I incline my head toward him. I am sorry we doubted you, I say. We were desperate for a culprit. You were a convenient line on the chart. He waves both hands. No, Empress, he says. You had every reason. If I had been in your place, I would have suspected me too. I am greedy, I love money, and I already run half your trade web. That is exactly the kind of person conspirators would try to turn. He takes a breath. But I am greedy in the way of a man who knows where his bread is buttered. He says more quietly. Tempest is my home. I will not sell it out. His voice shakes on the last word. Good, I say. I need you at my side, not in a cell. He swallows hard, then nods. I'm not crying, he says. You are absolutely crying, Shine mutters. I'm sweating from my eyes, he protests. A few tired chuckles run around the table. The tension eases a little. I'll let it just for a heartbeat. Then I straighten. The movement pulls at my injuries. I ignore it. We held, I say. Barely. We lost people. They attacked with a sacred weapon. They tried to crack my core and our barrier at the same time, using a spear of greed tied to my own blood. That is not something we can let slide. Benimaru's gaze is fixed on me. Diablo's smile has gone thinner. Shuna clasps her hands together tightly. We will reinforce our walls, repair our gates, and honor our dead, I say. But this does not end with us playing defense. The Rosso family forced a war on us. We're going to end it. The air in the room shifts. The naive slime who tried to please everyone, the one who joked to keep people comfortable, steps back a little inside me. The Empress steps forward. They use money and politics as weapons, I continue. So we will break their weapons first, before we march on their estate. We're going to crash their empire. Jalmile straightens, eyes sharpening. Now you are speaking my language, he says. I nod to him. Seal, I think. Show us what you found. Projecting, a faint shimmer appears above the table, forming a map of trade routes and coin flows. Colored lines trace between Tempest, the Council City, Rosso Holdings, distant banks. Everyone leans in. The Rosso family sits at the center of a web of loans, debts, and supply contracts, I say. They extend credit to smaller merchants, fund noble projects, sponsor church works. In return, they get influence and leverage. Jalmile grunts. They also own shares in every major warehouse between here and Falmouth. He says, if they default, half the region freezes up. That is the surface, I say. Seal dug deeper. The map shifts. Some lines thicken. Others flicker. New ones appear in red. These are the hidden channels, I say. Off-book loans, illegal shipments, forced labor routes disguised as pilgrim caravans. They use clean money up front to hide dirty money underneath. Sui's eyes narrow. Child trafficking lines, he says softly. Yes, I say. They move people as cargo and call it charity. They fund slavers behind church walls. Cheyenne's fingers curl around her sword hilt. Can we burn them now, she asks. Soon, I say. First we pull their support out from under them. Maria Bell and Graham Bell think in terms of control. They believe they can twist anyone with enough gold and pressure. If we show their allies that the Rossos cannot protect their investments, those allies will step back. Then when we come for them, no one important will rush to their rescue. Jalmile taps his chin. You want to start a panic in their creditor base, he says. Exactly, I say. We leak proof of their worst crimes to the right people, in the right order. Council members who already dislike them. Bankers who hate risk. Merchants who owe them money but have other options. We feed whispers into the right ears that the spear attack failed because the gods disapproved, that the church magic misfired. Devils and monsters did not break their toy. Their own greed did. Diablo smiles slowly. Blasphemy as a tool, he says. How delicious. Glinda snorts. You start a run on Rosso credit. She says, half their partners will scramble to distance themselves before anyone can say treason. Can we do it without tanking the entire region? Benimru asks. Jalmile spreads his hands. If we are careful and selective, yes, he says. We make sure replacement lines are ready before we cut the old ones. I can redirect some of their cleaner clients into my network and yours. They get continuity. Rosso loses revenue and face. I'll look at him. Can you do that fast? I ask. He grins, a little wild now that fear has turned into purpose. Empress, he says, I have waited my whole life for you to tell me to legally ruin a rival who deserves it. Give me seal, some paper, and a demon or two, and I will have bankers begging you for protection by morning. Diablo, I say. He bows. Gladly, he says. Shana shifts. What about the church weapon? She asks. Will they not simply make another spear if we give them time? Seal, I think. The artifact used a unique alignment with the barrier in your core, she says. Without the splinter in your arm, they cannot recreate that exact attack easily. They may try something similar, but they no longer have a direct anchor inside you. Good, I think. Aloud, I say they lost their spear and their best shot at taking me out of play quietly. They will be furious. They will make mistakes. So he nods slowly. In chaos, he says, we move. I turn to Glenda. You wanted new employers for the rest of the day, I say. This is your chance. How much do you know about the Rosso estate layout? She smiles in a way that shows a lot of teeth. Enough, she says. They like to show off their wealth. They hired Cerberus to test their defenses. I made copies of the plans, just in case. Of course you did, I say. She steps forward and spreads a rough sketch on the table. It is not pretty, but the lines are clear. Walls, gates, inner compound, a central manor, a chapel that is too big and too central to be purely decorative. Here, she says, tapping the chapel. This is where they keep their special toys. Artifacts, binding circles, that sort of thing. Security is thick. Wards, guards, church knights. This is where your spear friend was tuned from. And here, she taps the main hall, is where Grand Bell receives important guests. His offices and personal study are in the wing behind it. Maria Bell moves between the chapel and the hall. She has a private garden balcony with its own escape route. She thinks no one noticed. She is wrong. I study the sketch. We go in at night, I say. Strike team only. Me, Benimru, Diablo, see. Cheyenne stays here and watches the city. Veldora stays inside, because if I bring him, there will not be an estate left to search. Cheyenne opens her mouth. No, I say before she can argue. I need you here. Someone has to punch any idiot who thinks this is a good time to test our defenses while I am away. Also, you could collapse half a district if you swing that sword in a noble house. She looks offended, then reluctantly agrees with the last part. Fine, she says, but if you do not come back, I will drag your soul out of whatever afterlife you find and yell at you. Deal, I say. Benimaru leans over the map. We infiltrate from the garden side, he says, so we can handle outer wards. Diablo breaks the inner ones. I keep Granbell busy if he insists on playing the hero. Rimuru takes Mariabelle. That is still too much fighting for you, Shuna says sharply. You can barely walk. I will not be doing heavy wide area spells, I say. This is precision work. Seal will limit my output range. I will rely more on skills than raw magicules. You had better, Seal mutters. Jalmile clears his throat. You mean to march on a noble family of the council, he says. That will have political fallout. Yes, I say, which is why we let their crimes speak first. By the time we arrive at their gate, half their support will already be shaking. They aimed a sacred artifact at a demon lord who attended their ball in good faith. They funded attacks on a sovereign state. Even in their own rules, that is treason. Diablo smiles like this is the finest dessert he has ever been offered. I will make sure the right people know, in the right tone, he says. Scandal, outrage, whispers that the gods turned their face from the Rosso line when the spear failed. Humans love stories where the arrogant fall. Glinda laughs softly. You are terrifying, she says. Diablo inclines his head. Thank you, he says. I look at each of them in turn. My people, my friends. They drew first blood, I say. They try to turn our kindness into a weapon. They use the young noble's fear of losing his family to burrow into our city. They threw a spear at my heart and laughed when they thought it would crack me open. I raise my left hand. It trembles a little, but the gesture is steady enough. Now we answer, I say, not as victims, as the Empress of JURA and her family. Benimaru bows his head. As you command, he says. One by one, the others follow. Shuna, Cheyenne, Sui, Diablo, Rigard, Jalmile, even Glinda, who bows with a mercenary flair but with respect. My chest still hurts. The cracks along my arm still burn. I feel more awake than I have in days. The crash begins at sunset. I'm not on the front lines for this one. My battlefield is a desk in my office, a stack of papers, a magic mirror, and Seal. Diablo vanishes into thin air with a curt bow and a delighted hum. Jalmile sprints off with an armful of scrolls, yelling at his assistants about new contracts, emergency credit lines, and how often they should bow when they deliver certain letters. Sui disperses into shadows, sending silent messengers in a dozen directions. I sit, every movement careful, and watch the first stones fall. Bank in Falmouth No. 3 is receiving our anonymous report. Seal says, evidence of Rosso funding for illegal slave transports, copied directly from their hidden ledgers. How are they reacting? I ask. A faint image flickers in the mirror in front of me. A heavy-set banker in fine clothes stares at the papers with growing horror. This cannot be right, he mutters. If this is discovered, the temple will hang us beside them. An assistant wrings his hands. What do we do, he asks. The banker sweats. We pull our exposure, he says. Now, freeze all new credit to Rosso Ventures. Call in what loans we can without raising alarms. And for the love of all the saints, do not breathe a word about this to the high priest until we have distance. The image fades. One line gone. Seal says, next I say. She shows me a noble study in the council city. A minor lord, not important on paper, but with friends. He reads a neat packet of documents delivered by a courier with no crest. Inside are copies of correspondence between Granbell and church officials, notes on the Spear Project, and a detailed list of casualties at our gate. Monsters, yes, the noble mutters, but also humans. Our own mercenaries. They use them as disposable shields. He looks sick. My cousin's son serves in Cerberus, he says. If this gets out, our house will be dragged down with him. His wife, sitting nearby with a teacup, narrows her eyes. Then do not be dragged, she says. You have always said the Rosso line is too arrogant. Cut ties now, quietly. When the council screams for someone to blame, point at them first. He hesitates for only a heartbeat. Send word to our factor, he says. We are to end all joint ventures. Tell the temple we are reconsidering our donations. Blame rumors of heresy if you must. 2 stones. 10, 20. As the evening deepens, more images play in the mirror. A priest biting his tongue as he reads about the spear's failure being called a sign of divine displeasure. A caravan master in a distant town refusing to load goods into a Rosso-branded wagon. A small merchant who owes the Rossos money, seizing the chance to renegotiate his debt with a different sponsor. Diablo reports in periodically, smooth and pleased. I attended a little gathering at one of Granbel's favorite banks, he says in one update, voice echoing faintly through the mirror. After a short chat about the unpredictable nature of war, they agreed to place a hold on his personal accounts for security reasons. Such responsible people. Did you threaten them? I ask. Not directly, he says. I simply painted a picture of what might happen to their fine marble building if a certain noble family decided to make him a target alongside Tempest. They were very motivated to avoid that scenario. His eyes glitter. It is remarkable what humans will give up to feel safe, he adds. Glinda appears in the mirror once, sitting on a crate in some dim warehouse, chewing on a piece of dried meat. Your plan is working, she says. Cerberus contacts say pay has been delayed. Supplies meant for them are getting held at ports due to sudden audits. Someone is freezing the lines. That someone is us, I say. She grins. I guessed, she says. Thought you might want to know that more of my people are open to switching contracts. They like not being used as bait. Noted, I say. By midnight, a quiet panic spreads through the web around the Rosso name. They are not ruined yet. Giants do not fall in one night, but their footing is cracking. They can feel it. Now we move. The Rosso estate sits on a hill outside the council city, a sprawling complex of stone and glass. Tall walls surround manicured gardens. Torches line the outer path. Guards patrol in pairs, armored and alert. From a distance, it looks peaceful. From a shadow grove where we stand, it looks like a target. Benimaru stands to my left, hand resting lightly on his sword. Diablo is to my right, gloved fingers flexing as if eager. Sui is simply there, his presence like a patch of deeper dark. Glinda crouches nearby, tracing lines in the dirt with a stick as she murmurs last-minute notes. Outer patrols walk the wall in 2-minute loops, she says. The gap is here, near the east corner, where the tree line comes close. They cut it back after our last test, but not enough. Their wards are tuned to large-scale intrusions. For small signatures will slip through if we time it with their change of shift. What about internal alarms? Sui asks. Chapel has its own array, Glinda says. So does the main hall. They both report to the same control crystal in Granbel's study. If you take that out, they will have to rely on runners and shouting. Convenient, Benimaru says. Rich people like central switches, Glinda replies. I rest my back briefly against a tree. My right side throbs. Seal wraps steady pressure around the cracks. Your body is barely held together, she says. Reminder heard, I think. We go in, hit the points that matter, and get out. If you collapse, I will route commands directly to your body, she says. Do not test me. That sounds terrifying, I think. It is meant to. I push off the tree and step forward. Everyone ready? I ask. Benimaru nods. Sui inclines his head. Diablo smiles with that smooth, unsettling delight. Glinda twirls her stick once and tosses it aside. Ready? She says. If we live through this, I expect a hazard bonus. You'll get one, I say. She raises an eyebrow. In coin, she adds. I almost smile. In coin, I confirm. We move. Sui takes the lead, slipping ahead as a blur. He signals silently with small gestures, timing our steps with the patrols. We cross the open ground between trees and wall in short bursts, hugging shadows. The wall looms above us, smooth stone broken by decorative carvings. Words hum faintly. Sui presses a hand against the stone. Shadow spreads from his fingers, feeling for the threads of magic. They tune this to mass attacks, he murmurs. Siege spells, monsters, storms. Not 4 people calmly walking through. He unhooks a small device from his belt, presses it to the ward, and twists. The hum changes pitch. A narrow gap opens in a magic, just wide enough for a person. Now, he says, we slip through one by one. The ward closes behind us like water. Inside the walls, the gardens are silent. Moonlight spills over trimmed hedges and fountains. The manor rises ahead, windows like blank eyes. Study is on the 3rd floor. East wing, Glinda whispers. Chapel entrance is at ground level on the south side. Sui, I say. You take the study, break the control crystal, then circle to support Benimaru if he needs it. He nods once and vanishes upward, climbing the wall like it is nothing. Diablo, I say, you are with me for now. We head for the chapel. That is where Maria Bell is most likely to be. Benimaru, you make sure Graham does not interrupt. Benimaru gives a sharp grin. With pleasure, he says. We split. Moving through the estate feels wrong. On one level, it is all luxury and polish. Marble floors, tapestries, gilded railings, servant corridors tucked out of sight. On another, I can feel the weight of everything they built on cruelty. Seal whispers in my mind as we pass certain doors. Holding cells 2 levels down, she notes. Wards to prevent noise from escaping. There are at least 12 people in there now. We will free them on the way out, I think. Assuming there is a way out, she replies. Optimism, Seal, I say. Realism, Rimuru, she counters. We reach the side corridor that leads to the chapel. The air grows cooler. The stone underfoot changes from polished floor to older blocks, etched with faint sigils. At the end of the hall, heavy doors stand closed. Light flickers underneath. I stop. Diablo, I say softly. If she has another spear or any similar artifact, your top priority is making sure it does not activate, even if that means throwing yourself in the way. He bows his head. To die in your service would be an honor, he says. To live in my service is more useful, I reply. His smile grows wider. As you wish, he says. We push the doors open. The chapel is beautiful and horrifying at once. Tall windows let in pale moonlight, painting the floor in cold stripes. An ornate altar sits at the far end, carved with symbols of a god that never answered me when I died the first time. Candles burn in carefully arranged rows, their light mixing with the glow of crystal arrays built into the walls. Maria Bell stands before the altar, hands folded as if in prayer. Her hair is perfectly arranged. Her dress is pristine white trimmed in gold. A thin bracelet of clear crystal circles her wrist, pulsing faintly. Another device sits on the altar itself, a prism that hums with a familiar greedy energy. She turns when the door opens. Her eyes widen when she sees me there, upright and not a pile of ash. You're very rude, she says. You were supposed to die. Sorry to disappoint, I say. She studies me. Her gaze lingers on the cracks, climbing my right side, visible where my robe has shifted. Oh, she breathes. You did get hurt. Her smile is bright and delighted. My spear reached you after all, she says. How does it feel? Like your own power is trying to eat you from the inside. Something like that, I say. You put a knife in my soul and tied it to a bomb. Creative. Ugly, but creative. She tilts her head. You are still trying to joke, she says. What? You should be begging. Diablo steps slightly in front of me. Maria Belrasso, he says, voice smooth and cold. You aimed a divine weapon at my master and dared to think you would not be punished. You have no concept of the scale of insult you have given. She flicks her eyes to him. And you must be the pet demon, she says. I have heard about you. So loyal. So pathetic. Does it hurt, knowing your goddess bleeds? His smile does not change. It hurts far less than what you will feel soon, he says. A door at the side of the chapel slams open. Graham strides in, dressed in ceremonial armor that looks old and worn in the way of weapons that have actually seen battle. His hair is gray. His eyes are sharp. He carries a sword that hums with latent power. Rimuru Tempest, he says. Empress of monsters. I had hoped to avoid this. I glance at him. By killing me quietly at a ball, I say. His jaw tightens. You are a threat to the balance of this world, he says. A monster who thinks like a human. That makes you too dangerous. I did what had to be done. You tried to assassinate a foreign leader under truce, I say. You mind-controlled a prisoner and used him as spy on my people. You fired a god spear at a city full of civilians. And you call that balance. He lifts his sword. I fought as a hero once, he says. I saw what demon lords do when left unchecked. I will not let that happen again. I will not let another claimant rise in finer clothes. I'm not claimant, I say. Every tyrant says that at the start, he replies. Maria Bell laughs softly. Listen to him, she says. He is practiced in speeches. She steps closer to the altar, fingers brushing the prism. The bracelet on her wrist flares. Seal snarls in my head. Greed array detected. She's trying another link. You think you can come into my home, break my weapon, and walk away, Maria Bell says. No, you took my toy. I will take you. All of you. Your city, your people, your very soul. You will be mine. That is fair, is it not? Greed for greed. The air around her thickens. A field of conceptual pressure rolls out from her, aimed straight at my core. She's trying to rewrite your contract with your own skills, Seal says sharply. She wants to bind gluttony and Raphael under her greed. Rude, I think. Maribel's smile widens. Do you feel that? She says. Is the feeling of someone stronger than you taking everything? The way you took your title. The way you devoured your enemies. We're the same, you and I. We just pick different toys. Her greed washes over me like cold oil, slick and suffocating. It slides along my soul, looking for cracks for places to hook. It finds the lines left by the spear. Pain flares. Maria Bell laughs. Yes, she says. Yes, that is it. That is where I cut you. You should have died. You did not. So now I will crawl through the wound and wear you like a dress. I'll let her talk. Seal works. She is focusing everything on that tear, Seal says. She thinks it's an open door. It is actually a scarred gate. Can we use that, I ask. We can, Seal says. Gluttony can. The more she pushes in, the more material there is to eat. I smile, slow and sharp. Maria Bell frowns. What are you smiling at? She snaps. You, I say. You talk a lot about greed, but you do not understand it at all. Her eyes narrow. I understand wanting everything, she says. You understand wanting without thinking, I reply. There's a difference. I take a breath that hurts and step forward. The greed pressure digs deeper. Instead of pushing it away, I open my metaphorical mouth. Gluttony stirs, not just a hunger for food or power. The deep, strange capacity to absorb and analyze anything. Predator. The thing that let me eat magicules and skills and shape them into something new. It stretches toward the cold slickness of greed. Maribel's eyes widen. What are you doing, she demands. Eating, I say. Gluttony bites. Greed is not like other energies. It does not flow cleanly. It clings, resists, grabs at whatever touches it, and tries to make it part of itself. As gluttony clamps down, greed tries to latch back, to wrap around the attack and claim it. She is using her own skill as a mouth, Seal says. She intends to consume your consumption. Let her try, I think. I feed more of greed into the exchange. Not my own. Hers. Seal redirects the incoming pressure, shaping it like water into a channel that leads straight into gluttony's domain. Every bit of greed she pushes, every attempt to take more of me, adds to the mass we are already swallowing. Maria Bell gasps. This is mine, she says. You cannot take it. That is not how this works. Greed is wanting more than you can hold, I say. You have never actually tested the size of your own hands. She throws everything at me. Power slams into my core. The cracks scream. The chapel trembles. Candles topple, wax splattering. The prism on the altar glows, so bright it hurts to look at. Granbell raises his sword, meaning to strike while I am distracted. Benimaru appears between us. He was not there a moment ago. Now he is. His sword catches Granbell's in a flare of light. You fight me, Benimaru says through clenched teeth. Not her. Granbell grits his teeth. Stand aside, he snarls. No, Benimaru replies. Their clash rings through the chapel. I focus on Maria Bell. Her greed pours in me like a flood. Seal channels it, layer by layer, feeding it into gluttony's maw. The more it eats, the more it can eat. Maria Bell staggers, eyes wild. Stop, she says. Stop. That is mine. You cannot. I took all this. I earned it. How dare you take it from me? Her bracelet cracks. Lines of force spiderweb across the crystal. The prism on the altar follows, its glow going jagged. You stole it, I say, from people who thought they had no choice. From a system you built to choke anyone who was not human enough or noble enough for you. Her greed surges. My vision narrows. Pain lances along my side. Seal grits her metaphorical teeth. If we keep eating at this rate, your core will strain, she warns. If we stop, she wins, I think. Then we guide it, she says. We will make her choke on her own hunger. She shifts the internal field. Instead of letting gluttony absorb everything directly into my skill set, she creates a loop. Greed energy flows in, gets chewed, and is thrown back into Maribel's own circuits, over and over, each time with a bit of analysis attached, each time slightly more than she expected. Maria Bell screams. No, she says. No, 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 no. Her body jerks. The crystal on her wrist explodes in a spray of shards. The prism on the altar shatters completely, pieces hanging in the air for a second before dissolving. The field of greed collapses inward on her. She grabs at her chest. It is mine, she gasps. All mine. You cannot. You cannot have it. I will not share. I will not empty. I will not be empty. Her eyes are wide and glassy. Seal's voice is quiet. She is collapsing in her own concept. She cannot imagine letting go of anything. So when forced to, her identity shreds. Maria Bell staggers back until she hits the altar. For a strange second, I see the girl she used to be. A child who wanted everything because the world told her she could have nothing unless she took it herself. Someone hurt her and called it love. Someone told her desire was filthy and then shoved their own greed in her face until she broke. She could have chosen differently. She did not. I'm not empty, she whispers. I'm not. I'm not. Her voice cracks on the last repetition. Then the greed inside her detonates. No blood. No gore. Her body dissolves into a cloud of shimmering dust that spins once in the air and then is sucked into the invisible jaws of gluttony, where Seal wraps it and locks it away. The chapel goes silent. The candles gutter. The water rays die with soft sighs. Graham Bell staggers as his daughter vanishes. His sword wavers. For the first time, his iron self-control cracks. Maria Bell, he breathes. Benimaru eases his blade away by instinct, thrown by the sudden shift. Graham Bell stares at the space where she was. This was not how it was supposed to go, he says. She was supposed to live, to rule, to bring the world under one law, so no monsters could ever again wipe out a town in a night. His voice is hoarse. You wanted to control everything so no one could hurt you again, I say. She wanted to own everything so no one could take things away. Neither of you ever stopped to ask what you were doing to everyone else. He looks at me. You do not understand, he says. I watched farmers burn alive, children eaten, wives flayed. I killed demon lords for less than what you can do. If I did nothing, I would be responsible for the next massacre. You decided before meeting me that I would be the next monster, I say. You built your whole plan on that. You never gave me a chance to prove you wrong. I gave you chances, he protests. At the council, at the ball. You smiled and played at being kind, but you are a slime who devours. That is what you did to your enemies. That is what you did to Clayman. Clayman enslaved people and turned them into puppets, I say. You did the same to Ealdred. You used his fear to control him. You are closer to Clayman than I will ever be. Benimaru steps back slightly, giving us space. Diablo watches with narrowed eyes, ready to intervene if Grand Bell tries anything. Grand Bell's grip on his sword loosens. If I admit that, he says slowly, then I have to admit that I killed people for my own fear, not for their safety. Yes, I say. His shoulders sag. I am a hero, he says. I was a hero. He looks at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. Maybe I've been a villain for a long time and did not notice. He whispers. Silence stretches. I can offer you something, I say quietly. I can take your power, your title, your influence. I can leave you alive, old man, to live out your days as a nobody in a town you once ignored, to watch what the world does without your hand on its throat. He laughs once, a harsh, short sound. That is a cruel mercy, he says, living long enough to see if everything you did was meaningless. It is more than you gave many of your victims, I say. He looks at the altar again, at the empty space where his daughter stood. I loved her, he says. I wanted to protect her. I turned her into this. He lifts his sword. Benimaru tenses. Diablo shifts. Grambel does not raise the blade toward me. He turns it and sets the point against his own chest. Stop, I say sharply. He meets my eyes. You broke my will, he says. That was your victory. There is nothing left in me to rebuild anything with. If I live, I will always be tempted to pull the strings again. Heroes do not retire. They rust. Better a clean end. There is no honor in running from the mess you made, I say. There is no honor left in me at all, he replies. Only stubbornness. This is the last choice that is mine alone. He smiles, tired and sad. Then allow me this one selfish act, he says. Before I can cross the distance, before Benimaru can grab him, he drives the blade through his own heart. Light flares once. He crumples to his knees, then falls to the floor. The chapel smells like iron and candle smoke. I stand very still. Seal whispers in my mind. You could have stopped him if you had used more power, she says. I know, I think. You chose not to. I know, I repeat. I feel no triumph. Only a heavy, tired ache. Are we done here? Diablo asks softly. Not yet, I say. We have people to free and a world to inform. The rest of the raid is almost quiet compared to the chapel. Sui reports that the control crystal is shattered. Wards all over the estate have gone dark. Guards, robbed of leadership and clear orders, either throw down their weapons or run. We open the holding cells and lead out confused prisoners, some of them barely more than children. Shuna, when she arrives with a medical team, looks ready to blast the whole place into rubble when she sees the brands on their wrists. Later, I tell her, we bring them home first. She nods, eyes wet and furious. Glinda and her people slip through the corridors like they own them, taking down pockets of resistance with efficient strikes. Word will spread by morning, she says as we regroup in the courtyard. Rosso estate stormed. Grambel dead. Malabel gone. Some will call you a tyrant. Most will call it overdue. Is that your professional assessment? I ask. She laughs. Professional, she says, and personal. I never liked them. Benimaru walks at my side as we leave the estate. His hand hovers near my back, ready to catch me if I stumble. I am exhausted. The cracks in my side burn in a steady line. Gluttony churns as it digests what is left of Maribel's greed, with Seal watching like a hawk to make sure nothing slips free. We have neutralized the core of her skill, Seal says. A fragment will remain as data, but it will not act on its own. So I will not wake up wanting to buy every dress in the city, I think. You might do that on your own, she says dryly. The night air outside is cool and smells of wet stone and distant smoke. As we walk away from the Rosso estate, I glance back once. No one is coming to its rescue. The crash we started earlier did its work. Their allies are busy saving themselves. The church will scramble to frame this in the best possible light, but they cannot erase the fact that a demon lord walked into one of their favorite houses and walked out again. Rimuru, Benimaru, says quietly. Yes, I reply. You did it, he says. You ended them. With a lot of help, I say. He looks like he wants to say more and bites it back. I nudge his arm with my elbow. Say it, I tell him. He hesitates, then sighs. When you fell from the sky, I thought I had lost you, he says. Today, watching you walk into that chapel, I realized something else. I'm never going to be ready to lose you. Not in battle. Not to politics. Not to time. My heart does an inconvenient little flip. You are not losing me, I say. Not today. He gives a small, helpless laugh. Then let me be selfish for once, he says. Let me stay beside you. Not just as your general, but as the man who will drag you out of the sky when you forget you are not indestructible. Heat rises in my face that has nothing to do with battle. We can talk about that when I'm not held together by bandages and stubbornness, I say. He smiles. I will hold you to that, he says. Everyone is holding me to things today. I grumble. Diablo falls into step on my other side. Your judgment was perfect, he says, voice soft with fierce pride. You spared where mercy served you and destroyed where justice demanded. You are radiant. I roll my eyes. Diablo, I say, if you start worshipping in the middle of the road, we're going to trip over you. He laughs quietly. Very well, he says. I shall save it for later. Glinda calls from ahead. Empress, she says, we will hold the estate until your people arrive to secure it. My contract with the Rossos is very thoroughly broken now. If you want a mercenary company who knows all the noble tricks, we are taking offers. We will talk, I say. She gives a lazy salute. Try not to die before we sign, she says. I am not planning to die at all, I reply. Inside me, the weight of what we did settles slowly. We crashed an empire without firing a single large-scale spell. We walked into the heart of human power and killed a former hero and a greed-mad noble. We freed prisoners they would have fed into their machine. We also stained our hands further. I can feel the blood on them, metaphorical and real. Seal is quiet. Do you think I went too far? I ask her. You did what was necessary to prevent them from doing worse to more people, she says. If you had left them alive with their power intact, they would have tried again, and again, and again. I know, I think. I just do not want to become what they feared. You worry about that. That alone sets you apart, she replies. Back in Tempest, the bells will ring not in alarm, but in warning that something has changed. The people will whisper. Merchants will look to me for new contracts. The council will send letters full of outrage and fear. We will answer, but not tonight. Tonight I am going home. Shuna will scold me and push me back into bed. Veldora will demand snacks and recount how he did not blow up the city. Rigard will cry into his hands with relief. Ildred will sit in his cell and wait to hear if his family made it safely here. And Benimaru will stand outside my door until Shuna threatens to knock him out. The Rosso family is gone. Their greed is chewed and locked away. Their empire is already collapsing under the weight of its own sins. The war they started is ending. The world will not be peaceful. It never is. But for the first time since the ball, I can see a path where Tempest stands not as a pawn in human games, but as a player. Crimson judgment has been given. Now we deal with what comes after. The first thing I notice is the quiet. No bells. No explosions. No distant roar of a dragon arguing with the sky. Just the soft sound of fabric moving and someone breathing near my bed. My second thought is that I am very tired of waking up in the infirmary. I open my eyes. Shuna is asleep in a chair beside me, cheek resting on her folded arms on the edge of the mattress. Her hair is slightly frizzy, like she has been running herself ragged. There are faint shadows under her eyes. Sunlight filters in through the high window, turning the dust in the air into slow-moving specks. The smell of herbs and clean bandages hangs over everything. I shift. Pain flickers along my right side, dull but sharp enough to remind me not to move too fast. The cracks on my arm are still there, thin black lines tracing from wrist to collarbone. They glow very faintly, less than before. At least they're not pulsing like open wounds anymore. Shuna stirs and lifts her head. Her eyes meet mine. For a heartbeat, she just stares. Then her shoulders sag, and she lets out a long breath that sounds like it has been stuck in her chest for days. Good morning, I say. My voice is rough, but better than last time. She wipes at her eyes quickly, even though I clearly saw the tears. It is afternoon, she says. You slept through the morning. Afternoon, I repeat. How long this time? 3 days, Seal says inside my head. I blink. Shuna hears my little intake of breath and answers the question out loud. 3 days, she says. Proper rest, not the strange drifting from before. Seal said your soul needed time to stop shaking. That explains why I feel like stale jelly, I say. Shuna gives an exhausted little laugh. You're not allowed to scare us like that again, she says. Ram Iris kept popping in to yell at your soul, and then crying. Veldora camped in the corridor outside until I used a sleep spell on him. Benimaru refused to leave this room unless I lied, and said you would be angry if he smelled too much. I imagine Benimaru sulking outside like a giant, overprotective cat. Did you really say that? I ask. She blushes. I may have implied it, she says. Seal hums. Your overall condition has improved. The crack has sealed at the deepest layer. The outer part will take longer, but you will not fall apart if you move carefully. So I'm not allowed to do any skydiving for a while, I think. You're not allowed to do any skydiving ever, she replies. Shuna leans closer and checks the bandages on my side with gentle fingers. The black lines are retreating, she says. Slowly. I have been feeding healing magic into them whenever you drifted close to waking. Thank you, I say. Her throat tightens. Do not thank me, she says. Just stop giving me heart attacks. The door opens before I can answer. Benimaru steps in, looking like someone who has fought a war with no sleep, then lost an argument with his own hair. He stops dead when he sees my eyes open. Hey, I say. He crosses the room, so fast the air moves. Rimuru, he says. Shuna stands up quickly. I will bring tea, she says, and politely leaves the two of us alone, which is very subtle for her. Benimaru stops at the side of the bed, hands clenched and then unclenched. It is like he is fighting himself over whether to touch me. You can sit, I say. He sits, the chair creaking under his weight. His eyes scan me from head to toe, checking the cracks, the bandages the way I am sitting. You look better, he says. You look worse, I reply. He huffs. I have been busy, he says. How bad, I ask. That pulls him into work mode. His shoulders square. His expression turns serious, though some of the tension stays. The city is stable, he says. We finished securing the Rosso estate. Diablo is still neck-deep in banks and angry nobles. Jalmile has not stopped smiling in 2 days, which is terrifying. The Council of the West has sent a very long letter that says they are shocked, outraged, and deeply concerned. In other words, they're trying to figure out how to spin this. I snort. What do they call the raid, I ask. An unapproved intervention, he says. A violation of noble sanctity. And, in one line that Diablo highlighted for me, an understandable response to unprovoked divine aggression. I blink. They really wrote that, I say. They really did, Benimuru replies. They cannot afford to pretend they knew about the spear. The moment news of that spreads, any member who stayed silent will look guilty. So they're throwing the Rossos under the cart and insisting they knew nothing. Seal shows me a faint echo of a recent discussion. Nobles arguing in a council hall, voices raised. Some red-faced, some pale, all scared. The word spear repeated in angry whispers. So Rosso is officially the villain in their story now. I say, yes, Benimuru says. Their assets have been frozen or seized in several cities. Diablo and Jalmile are moving faster than anyone else to catch the falling pieces. My chest aches in a different way. Tempest, I say. He nods. Tempest is the news center, he says. The merchants who knew which way the wind was blowing already started shifting their trade through us. After Diablo gave a few very polite speeches about our reliability, it became a flood. So we broke one web, and now everything is sticking to us, I say. You don't want to build an empire, Seal says dryly. Yeah, but the safe kind, I think. Benimuru studies my face. This is what you wanted, he says slowly. To prove we are not pawns, but players. It is just happening faster and messier than anyone planned. He reaches out, then stops. Can I, he asks. Yes, I say. He takes my left hand, the unmarked one, and holds it gently. His thumb strokes over my knuckles once. The people accepted it, he says. When we told them what the Rossos did, how they used Ealdred, how they aimed that spear at you and the city, they did not call you a tyrant for striking back. They called it justice. What about Ealdred, I ask. The traitor who was not a traitor by choice. The man who spied on us with someone else's hand on the back of his mind. Benimuru's expression shifts. That is the next part, he says. He asked for a public trial. He says he does not want to hide behind secrets anymore. I'll let that sit for a moment. Public, I repeat. Yes, he says. In the central square. With our people watching. And with envoys from the council present. Because they want to see how you handle someone like him. Of course they do. They want to see if the monster empress tortures traitors, or if she can hold a line. How long until the trial? I ask. Tomorrow, he says. We delayed as long as we could while you slept. Ealdred refused to move the date farther. He said every day his fate is undecided is another day his family breathes wrong. I close my eyes briefly. That sounds like him, I say. Benimuru squeezes my hand a little tighter. You are not fully recovered, he says. Shuna wanted to push the trial back a week. Sui agreed. Even Diablo agreed. And he rarely agrees with anyone. You should still be in bed. I can sit for a few hours, I say. Rimuru, he says. I look at him. My people watch me fall out of the sky. I say quietly. They watched me get carried through the streets half-conscious. They watched 33 of their friends and family die because someone slipped a knife into my soul and pointed a spear at us. If the first time they see me after that, I hide in a room while someone else passes judgment for me, it sends a wrong message. We can tell them you're still recovering, he says. Which I am, I reply. But that does not change the fact that I am Empress. Leaders show up for the hard things. He closes his eyes briefly, then opens them. There's a mix of frustration and pride there. I knew you would say that, he says. But you hope anyway, I say. Yes, he replies. Shuna comes back with tea. She takes one look at our hands and raises an eyebrow, but says nothing. We talk about the trial now, I say. Then I rest again. I promise. Shuna narrows her eyes. You promise to stay in bed until tomorrow, she says. Mostly I hedge. She points a finger at me. Rimuru, she says in that older sister tone that cuts through any rank. You promised last time too, and then cut a divine artifact in the sky. I did not have a choice. I protest. You had a choice, Seal says. Traitor, I think. Shuna presses her lips together. Tomorrow, she says, you will sit on that platform. You will listen. You will speak. Benimaru and I will be right there. The moment you look pale, we stop. That is the condition. Benimaru nods. I will back her on that, he says. It is annoying when the people you love are correct. Fine, I say. I accept your terms. They both relax just a little. The next day, the central square is full. A raised platform has been set up where the festival stage usually stands. The barrier nexus underneath us hums quietly, a reminder that we strengthened it after the attack. Banners bearing the Tempest symbol and the JURA Federation crest hang behind my chair. I sit in the central seat, robes carefully arranged to hide most of the cracks. Shuna is on my right, calm and watchful. Benimaru stands slightly behind my left shoulder, in full armor, hand resting on the hilt of his sword. Sui is nowhere visible and everywhere. I can feel the faint threads of his shadows along the edges of the crowd. Ildred kneels in the middle of the platform, hands bound carefully in front of him with a restraint that prevents magic flares but does not hurt. His hair is neat. His clothes are clean. He looks like someone who tried very hard not to look like he is waiting for an execution. His family stands in the front row of the crowd, under a shield in case things go badly. His wife clutches their child against her. She looks like she has not slept in a week. There are envoys from the council, too. A few representatives who made it here quickly with the help of our teleport network. They stand to one side, polite and tense. I know at least two of them had business ties to the Rossos. Their eyes keep flicking from Ildred to me. Rigard stands at the edge of the platform with a scroll. His voice carries surprisingly well when he begins. Today, he says, we gather to judge the actions of Ildred of Falmouth, former trade liaison to Tempest, who passed information to the Rosso family and their agents, which was then used to attack our nation. A murmur runs through the square. Rigard continues. We also gather to weigh intent, control, and the presence of foreign influence upon his mind. We are here to decide not only his fate, but to show how Tempest answers betrayal. He bows to me. Empress Rimuru, he says, the court awaits your word. I stand slowly. My side aches, but does not burn. Seal wraps support around the weak points, steady as a brace. I'm not going to shout, I say to myself. My voice will carry enough. I look at Ildred. You asked for this trial, I say. Why? He lifts his head. Because I cannot live in a place that does not know what I did, he says. His voice shakes, but he holds my gaze. If you cover it up to protect your reputation or mine, if you send me away quietly, my children will grow up on a lie. I do not want that. I nod once. Tell them, I say. In your own words. He swallows. I came to Tempest as a liaison from Falmouth. He says, speaking loud enough for people to hear. At first it was work. I was amazed by your city. The way monsters and humans live together. How safe it felt. I wrote reports back home that were honest. That was my mistake. A bitter smile twists his mouth. Graham Bell and Maria Bell noticed, he says. They read every line and saw opportunity. They summoned me, offered promotions, money, security for my family. I refused. He takes a breath. Then they show me my wife and child in a scrying mirror. He continues. Told me they could make accidents happen. Bandits. Plague. A greedy merchant pushing them into debtor's prison. They said it would be a pity if my honesty led to such outcomes. The crowd is silent. They told me I would help them contain you, Ildred says. Just a few reports. Just a few adjustments to schedules. They said you were dangerous. That without their guidance you would turn on humans eventually. That I would be saving lives by helping them prepare. His hands tighten in the restraints until his knuckles go white. I wanted to believe that, he says, because the other option was admitting I was betraying people who trusted me. He glances at the envoys from the council. When I hesitated, Maria Bell used something on me, he says. A crystal from the church. It wormed into my head. Seal freed me from it, but I did not resist enough at the start. Part of this is on her greed skill. Part of it is on me. He looks back at me. I sent coded reports, he says. I adjusted guard rosters. I delayed certain shipments. I did not know the full plan, but I knew it would harm Tempest. I still did it. That is the truth. His voice cracks on the last sentence. Cheyenne, standing near the edge of the platform, grips her sword hilt. She looks like she wants to punch someone and is not sure who. Rigard turns to me. The accused admits his actions, Rigard says. He claims coercion and mental influence, but acknowledges choice. Empress Rimuru, what say you regarding his guilt? Guilty, I say. The word feels heavy, but clear. Ildred closes his eyes. His wife sobs softly in the crowd. However, I continue, and the square falls even more silent. Guilt alone does not decide punishment. Intent, control, and the chance of repair matter. I step a little closer to Ildred. When you had no knife at your throat, when it was only promises of money and status, you said no, I say. That counts for something. When they threatened your family, you said yes. That is understandable, but does not erase what followed. He opens his eyes. You could have come to me, I say. Or to Diablo. Or to Sui. You could have risked telling us. You did not. Fear is real, but so is faith. He nods, tears in his eyes. I was a coward, he says. Maybe, I say. Or maybe just human. Either way, we cannot pretend it did not happen. I face the crowd. Ildred is guilty, I say, voice carrying. His information helped our enemies strike the gate and nearly shatter our barrier. People died. Families grieve. For that, death would be simple. Too simple. A ripple moves through the people. Some are surprised. Some are relieved. Some are angry. We do not kill tools used by others unless we must, I say. We break the hands that wielded them. The Rosso line is gone. Their empire is falling. Their god spears have been shattered. That part of the debt is paid. I look back at Ildred. You will live, I say. You will live with what you did. You will work in the labyrinth under Ramiris and Veldora, where there is no room to hide from your own thoughts. You will build, repair, guard, and help train the forces that protect Tempest from the kind of scheme you were caught in. He stares at me, shocked. You will start with 20 years of service, I say. If, after that, Shuna and Sui both tell me you have earned trust, you may choose to remain here, or return to Falmouth under our supervision, or settle in a new town with your family. Until then, they will live in Tempest as guests and under our protection. His wife covers her mouth with both hands. You're not sending them away, she cries. No, I say. They did nothing. They get a home and safety. You get hard work and a chance to fix what you can. Ildred bows his head, so low his forehead touches the boards. Thank you, he whispers. Thank you for not making my child an orphan. This is not mercy, I say. It is responsibility. You will not leave the labyrinth without permission. You will be watched. If you try to run, if you sabotage anything, if you harm anyone under your care, the sentence will change. I understand, he says. I turn to the crowd again. This is how Tempest answers betrayal, I say. We protect the innocent. We punish the guilty. We give chances where they will not endanger others. We do not become monsters to fight monsters. Benimaru's presence at my back feels steady. Cheyenne relaxes a little, though she still looks like she would have preferred a punch to the face somewhere in there. The envoys from the council whisper among themselves. One of them, the noble who once worried about his nephew in Cerberus, watches me with a thoughtful expression. Rigard lifts his staff. The judgment is given, he says. So recorded. Sui steps from a nearby shadow and gestures to Ildred. Come, he says. I will take you to Ramiris. Ildred stands on shaky legs. He glances once at his wife and child. She nods, tears streaming down her face. I will work, he says. I will not waste this. I hope he means it. As he goes, the crowd begins to shift, voices rising. Some nod approval. Some grumble, wanting harsher payback. Most look relieved that their empress did not choose blood for blood. I sit down slowly. My side throbs, but the pain is manageable. How do you feel? Shuna asked quietly. Like someone put a mountain on my shoulders and then told me to smile. I say, that sounds about right, she replies. Benimaru leans down, his hand brushing lightly against the back of my chair where no one else can see. You did well, he says. It will not make everyone happy, I say. Nothing you do ever will, he replies. That does not mean you stop trying to do what is right. By evening, I'm back in my office with a stack of letters and one very eager demon. Diablo appears in front of my desk without using the door, as usual. He bows so deeply his hair nearly brushes the floor. Rimuru, he says, His smile is radiant. You were exquisite. I was sitting most of the time, I say. Exactly, he replies. You sat while a man who betrayed you knelt and confessed. And you chose a punishment that leaves him alive but bound to your will. The council envoys are in awe. They expected public execution or a farce. They received justice. He sounds delighted. I rub my temple. How are things on your side, I ask. Delightful, he says. The Rassos have been formally declared in disgrace by the council. Their titles are stripped. Their assets are in limbo. Many banks have quietly shifted management of those assets to new holding firms that happen to be registered through Jalmal's company and my own legal constructs. In other words, I say, through us. He beams. Tempest is now the primary creditor to 3 mid-sized kingdoms and several large merchant guilds, he says. We own warehouses in cities that once refused us entry, trade routes through ports that once charged us double tariffs, and a very lovely estate in the council capital that was used for Rosso entertaining. I raise an eyebrow. Estate, I say. A house, he corrects, with many rooms. Ideal for a Tempest embassy. Large gardens. Several private meeting halls. Excellent wine cellars. Of course you check the wine first, I say. One must have priorities, he replies. I lean back carefully in my chair. So Tempest is now rich, I say. Tempest is now unavoidable, Diablo corrects. Any attempt to isolate us would cause economic shock across half the continent. The council knows this. That is why their letter of outrage also contained a paragraph acknowledging our sovereignty and expressing a desire for closer cooperation. They actually wrote that, I ask. They did, he says, eyes shining. They used the phrase closer cooperation 5 times. I cannot help it. I laugh. Diablo, I say. You did very well. He freezes. The smile does not leave his face, but his eyes go wide, as if I just handed him the universe. You are pleased, he says. Yes, I reply. You took my anger and turned it into pressure in all the right places without burning everything. You kept the merchants who did not deserve to go down from falling with the Rassos. You made sure the council could back away without losing all their dignity. That is hard work. I am proud of you. For a moment, I think he might actually cry. Instead, he drops to one knee, hand over his chest, head bowed low. Your praise is more precious than any title, he says. His voice is thick. I will continue to live to be worthy of it. Please do, I say, because if you mess up now, it will be very embarrassing after that speech. He lets out a shaky laugh. Understood, he says. He rises, eyes suspiciously bright, and steps back. Also, I add, take a day off at some point. Even demons can burn out. He looks genuinely puzzled. A day off, he repeats. Yes, I say. A day where you do not ruin anyone's life, move any money, or terrify any bankers unless they annoy you personally. Go to the labyrinth. Annoy Veldora. Eat something nice. He slowly smiles, different from his usual sharp grin. Softer. If that is your command, he says, then I will do my best to rest in a way that makes you happy. Good, I say. He bows again and vanishes. Seal hums in my mind. You are building a terrifying myth around yourself, she says. I know, I think. I just hope some of it is the right kind of terrifying. Night falls clear and cold. I end up on the balcony of my room, drawn by habit. The stars above Tempest are bright, scattered across the sky like someone dropped a box of diamonds. The barrier shimmers faintly, a protective dome over the city. Below, lights glow in windows. Laughter drifts up from a tavern. Somewhere, Gopta yells about winning another game. Children run along the street, even this late, wolves padding calmly at their side. The cracks along my arm glow faintly under the starlight. Less than before. Still there. You are staring, Seal says. Just thinking, I reply. You promised no deep introspection, she reminds me. I am not being philosophical, I say. Just tired. The door behind me slides open. Soft footsteps cross the floor. Should you be out in the cold? Benimuru asks. I have a blanket, I say, lifting the edge of the cloak Shuna insisted I wear. He comes to stand beside me, leaning his forearms on the railing. The moonlight paints his hair silver at the edges. For a while, we just look out over the city. It feels different, he says quietly. Tempest, I ask. He nods. There is a new weight in the air, he says. People walk straighter, but also look farther over their shoulders. Merchants move like the ground is shifting under them. Even Veldora is a little less loud. Everyone can feel that something changed, I say. You changed it, he replies. I watch a line of lights move through the streets as a patrol makes its rounds. I'm the one who pushed, I say, but you all held the line when it counted. Venimuru, if you had not kept the gate from falling, if Cheyenne had not taken half those hits, if Sui had not stopped the saboteurs below, if Diablo had not cut the Rosso purse strings, none of this would matter. I would have just been a broken slime on a ruined street. He glances at me. You always do that, he says. Do what, I ask. Spread the credit until it looks like you did nothing, he says. You led us. You set the direction. We followed because we trust you, not because you forced us. His voice is firm, not angry, just stating a fact he wants me to accept. I sigh. Fine, I say. I will take some credit. Happy. A little, he answers. We stand in silence for another moment. Scared, he asks suddenly. Of what, I say. He shrugs one shoulder. Of how much we just took on, he says. Of the council. Of the church. Of what happens if another greedy fool decides to aim something worse at you. The honest answer sits on my tongue. Yes, I say. I am scared. I have been scared since we started building this place. It just came in different flavors. He lets out a slow breath. Good, he says. I blink and look at him. Good, I repeat. I would be more worried if you were not, he says. I grew up believing leaders were supposed to be flawless. Heroes who never doubted. Then I watched one of those so-called heroes almost destroy Clayman's victims because he could not admit he was wrong. I will take an empress who is scared and careful over one who thinks she cannot fall. Heat rises in my chest. Benimaru, I say. He turns to face me fully. He looks like he is about to step in a battle. Focused. Serious. A little nervous. During the raid, he says, when you went up to the spear alone, I felt something break in me. Not just fear. Anger. Not at you, but at the idea that you might vanish while I was still on the ground. He steps closer, close enough that I can see faint dark circles under his eyes. I love you, he says. He says it like a vow, plain and without drama. My heart stutters. I have suspected. I have heard it in the way he says my name when he thinks I'm not listening. I have felt it in the way he stands between me and danger even when I do not need him to. Hearing the words out loud is different. Benimaru, I say again. My throat feels tight, and I hate it. I love you as my empress, he continues, as the one I will follow into fire and back, but also as Rimuru, as the strange girl who woke up in the forest one day with modern jokes in her head and decided the world should be kinder and then started hitting anyone who disagreed. I snort, a tiny broken sound. You make me sound wild, I say. You are, he says, and stubborn, and ridiculous, and I would not trade you for any safe, quiet life. He reaches up very slowly, giving me time to pull back if I want to. His hand hovers near my cheek, just shy of touching. Can I, he asks softly. I swallow. My side aches. My arm burns slightly where the cracks still lie. My city is balanced on a new knife edge. The future is uncertain and heavy, and still, standing here under the stars, with him looking at me like I am something worth fighting for, I feel lighter. Yes, I say. His fingers brush my cheek, warm and a little rough from training. He cups my face gently, like Shuna would handle a delicate glass. He leans in and kisses me. It is not dramatic. There are no fireworks, no sudden gusts of magic. Just the firm, careful press of his lips against mine, the warmth of his breath, the way his hand trembles slightly where it holds me. I kiss him back. For a moment, all the noise in my head quiets. No council, no church, no spear. Just this small, stolen piece of time. When we break apart, we both exhale at the same time. It would be funny if I were not busy trying to remember how to breathe properly. I start. Yes, he says. We laugh, a little breathless. He rests his forehead against mine, careful not to jostle. I do not expect an answer right away, he says. I know you carry everything. I just needed you to know, and I wanted to say it while we are both alive and not crawling out of rubble. I put my hand over his where it rests against my cheek. You picked a good time, I say. I'm tired of pretending I do not know. His eyes search mine. So, he says slowly, is this the part where we talk about what comes next? We could try, I say, but we are bad at normal. He smiles, small and soft. Then we will make a new normal, he says. One where you still lead and I still fight, but you lean on us before you decide to cut the sky open alone. That sounds nice, I say. He kisses my forehead, a simple, grounding touch, under the stars, with the barrier shining above us like a crown of faint light. I let myself lean into him for a moment, not as Empress, just as Rimuru. A few weeks later, the city looks almost like it did before if you squint. The Western Gate is still a construction site, but there's already a new arch rising from the rubble, stronger and thicker, carved with protective runes. Veldora has been banned from the area unless Shuna or Ramiris is physically hanging off his arm. He sulks, then cheers up when someone hands him food. The markets are busier than ever. Merchants from distant lands now make Tempest their main stop. Children run between stalls, dragging their parents to see new sweets. Glinda sits on a crate near one of the corners, watching her Cerberus squad practice drills with Shine shouting corrections. She has officially become a contracted force under the JURA Federation banner, with strict clauses about not taking jobs that conflict with our interests. She negotiated hard. So did I. In the end, we both got a deal we could live with. They follow you, she says one afternoon, watching as a group of goblin riders salute me on their way past. Not because you are scary, but because you are theirs. It helps that I'm a little scary, I say. She laughs. True, she says. Ildred works in the labyrinth now. Ramiris complains loudly about having more humans underfoot, then secretly uses him as a test for new safety protocols. Veldora occasionally looms over him in the corridors, muttering about trust. Ildred never flinches, just bows and goes back to work. On his days of permitted rest, he spends time with his family in a small house near the edge of the city. His child chases Ranga's pups in the grass. His wife volunteers at the infirmary. They are building a life here, one brick at a time. The council sends more letters, some full of polite threats, some full of careful praise. They send a delegation to discuss new trade terms. They visit the empty space where the Rossos used to stand and look at me with a mix of fear and respect. We host them in the estate Diablo secured in the council capital, now flying the Tempest crest. It feels strange to see our symbol in a human city, but it fits. Agreements are signed. Lines are drawn. The church makes a lot of noise about the loss of a divine artifact, but quietly shift doctrine to say the gods punish the Rossos for abusing sacred gifts. Convenient. I do not argue. As long as they stop throwing spears at my head, they can tell whatever story makes them sleep at night. Veldora corners me one evening in the inner garden. He stands there with his arms folded, looking proud. I was very well behaved, he says. During the battle, I did not level any mountains. I punched only the things he told me to punch. I even stopped when Shuna shouted at me. You did, I say. Thank you. He leans in. I deserve snacks, he says firmly. I stare at him for a second, then burst out laughing. Fine, I say. You deserve snacks. His eyes light up. Many snacks, he adds. We will see, I say. He huffs. Stingy, he mutters, but he is smiling. Later that night, I sit in my office, a tray of snacks in front of me. Veldora sprawls on the couch, telling a very dramatic version of the spear incident that includes at least 3 parts that did not actually happen. Ranga snores softly under my desk. Cheyenne and Shuna argue in low voices over some new dish. Diablo stands near the window, quietly content. Benimera leans against the wall, arms folded, watching the room with a calm that was not there a few months ago. Outside, the city glows. The barrier hums, solid and steady. We are still monsters in the eyes of many humans. We still live in a world where greed can twist people into something unrecognizable. But we are not prey anymore. We have teeth, claws, and an economy that could make half the council cry. We have an empress who is still a little scared and still trying her best. We have friends who will stand even when the sky splits. I look at them, these strange, wonderful people who chose to follow a girl slime with big ideas. This is not the end, Seal says. I know, I think. It is just the end of one war. Above us, the stars shine bright, scattered like a crown over the dome of the barrier. I sit in the center of my city, surrounded by my family, and let myself believe that for tonight, at least, we are safe. Tomorrow, there will be more letters, more problems, more threats. Tonight, there are snacks, soft laughter, and a quiet knowledge that when the world comes for us again, we will be ready.